Chapter 579. In the huge space, there were all sorts of glowing treasures. There was the golden glow of gold coins, the purplish-black glow of magic coins, and the eerie white glow of unsheathed weapons. Everything seemed to be in a mess, but they were arranged in a certain order. Apart from that, there were several rooms connected to this space, and there should be all sorts of treasures in there as well. Because he had seen it once in the Flame Kingdom's palace treasury, Gray wasn't too shocked anymore. Although the things here looked luxurious, there weren't many things that he could use. Following Francis, Gray entered a room connected to this huge space. In the room, Gray saw several high platforms, and on each platform were various containers with stoppers. There were containers made of crystal, and there were also containers made of adamantine and mithril. There were words carved on the surface, and there were the names of the blood fiends. This is the collection of magic light rank blood fiends' blood from the Purple Moon Kingdom's royal family. Francis stopped in front of a small platform made of a single piece of gemstone. He pointed at the containers on the platform and said. Gray looked over and saw a total of 5 containers made of adamantine on the platform. The large ones were 4 to 5 liters, and the small ones were 1 to 2 liters. All of them were carved with the names of the blood fiend species. Seeing the blood of the magic light rank blood fiends, Gray confirmed his guess. The blood of the magic light rank blood fiends' blood from the Flame Kingdom's treasury was indeed taken away by someone. Previously in the Flame Kingdom's treasury, Gray had only obtained the blood of the Emerald Dragon, and the rest were of the blood of the King and Desolate rank blood fiends. When he was checking the goods, Gray had a vague feeling that something was wrong. How could the Flame Kingdom's 1,000-year collection only have one type of magic light, rank blood fiend's blood? Now that he had seen the collection of magic light gray blood fiend's blood from the Purple Moon Kingdom's royal family, he was almost certain that most of the magic light gray blood fiend's blood had already been taken away. As for the person who took it away, Gray guessed that it wasn't the 5th faction, but rather the royal family of the Flame Kingdom that came before the 5th faction. Walking closer, Gray took out the corresponding containers to collect the blood. He looked at the type of blood fiend marked on the 5 containers and marked the type of blood fiend on the container he took out. The first container was labeled as a demonic wind fox. Gray had seen this type of blood beast in a book before. It was a type of fox-type blood beast with a wind attribute. When it matured, it was much smaller than the average magic light level blood beast, reaching about 10 meters in length. Aside from being able to control the wind element, this type of blood fiend was also extremely fast. According to the book, the speed of a demonic wind fox could reach the top among blood fiends of the same realm. The second container was labeled as a water-repellent demonic beast. This type of blood beast had the ability to control water. It could squeeze water into a high-pressure water knife and attack. This type of blood beast had slender limbs and a slightly flat head. Its body looked healthy and slender. Its entire body was covered in white scales. On the white surface, there were symmetrical black patterns. These patterns curled up and looked a little like a ferocious-looking fish. Gray had encountered a similar type of blood beast before. It was a barbarian-level blood beast. At that time, it was fighting with an amethyst beast. In the end, the amethyst beast was killed by the amethyst beast. The amethyst beast then became Gray's prey, and its bloodline became a type of bloodline in his body. The third container was labeled as a 6-headed snake. This was a type of snake-type blood beast with 6 heads. The 6 heads represented that it had mastered 6 types of abilities. However, these 6 abilities were different in different 6-headed snakes. Simply put, a 6-headed snake only indicated that it had mastered 6 types of abilities. However, there were many variations of these 6 abilities. It was rumored that this type of blood beast had the Hydra bloodline. This was a type of mythical beast with 10 heads and 10 types of abilities. Previously, Gray had thought about whether to use metamorphosis to restore the Hydra bloodline. However, in the end, it was too difficult and he did not implement it. Gray looked at the label on the 4th container. It was labeled as a gemstone beast. When he saw this label, Gray's expression did not change much. However, he could not help but feel a little happy. It's actually a gemstone beast. The gemstone beast with a magic light ranked blood beast. Seeing this type of blood beast, Gray could not help but think of consuming this type of blood beast to metamorphose. Originally, he had thought of consuming the Gemstone King Beast blood to try to obtain the Gemstone King Beast gemstone transformation ability. He wanted to see if it could be combined with his metallization ability to form a stronger ability to strengthen his body. However, he was hesitant because the Gemstone King Beast bloodline could not keep up with his current level. Hence, he did not consume the Gemstone King Beast's blood to metamorphose. However, there was no need to hesitate now. This was because the Gemstone Beast not only had the gemstone transformation ability, but also had the bloodline of magic light. It could completely meet his requirements. Although his heart was filled with joy, there was not much change in his expression. Gray poured out a portion of the Gemstone Beast's blood and looked at the label on the last container. However, when he saw the type of blood beast, his eyes could not help but narrow. He read out the type of blood beast. Ice Fire Demonic Ape? Gray had never heard of the Ice Fire Demonic Ape, but from the ice and fire in its name, he could roughly guess what kind of blood beast this Ice Fire Demonic Ape was. If he was not wrong, this should be a type of blood beast that could control ice and fire at the same time. However, he did not know if its control of ice and fire was controlled by different heads like the Hydra, or if it had already formed a mixture of abilities like the mixed bloodline in his body. That's right, it's the Ice Fire Demonic Ape. Francis naturally understood why Gray was surprised. He smiled in understanding and said, "That's right. When the royal family first obtained the blood of this type of blood beast, we were indeed rather surprised. We were very curious if this type of blood beast was like the Hydra, with different heads controlling different abilities, or if it had already formed a mixture of abilities. For this reason, we once let the royal family members consume the blood of this type of blood beast to see if they could be corroded by the bloodline of the Ice Fire Demonic Ape and obtain the ability of this type of blood beast. However, it was not successful, and we did not understand what kind of ability this type of blood beast had. Until more than 100 years ago, when the royal family excavated the remains of an empire, we obtained many books. From these books, we saw an introduction to this type of blood beast. At this point, he paused and took a deep breath. What do the books say? Gray hurriedly asked. According to the introduction, this type of blood fiend is a type of mixed ability blood fiend. Its ice and fire abilities are combined to form an ability that allows it to control temperature. Its power is much stronger than pure ice and fire abilities. Moreover, there are blood beasts corresponding to this type of blood beast on this continent. Why have I never seen one before? Gray raised his eyebrows. So far, he had not seen or heard of a blood beast with such an ability. Not only you, but even the royal family of the Purple Moon Kingdom has never seen one. According to the royal family of the Purple Moon Kingdom, this type of blood beast should have disappeared. Francis shook his head again. Why did it disappear? Gray asked doubtfully. I don't know. In fact, in the batch of books obtained more than 100 years ago, there were records of other mixed blood beasts, but these blood beasts also disappeared. Francis shrugged. How many other types of mixed blood beasts disappeared at the same time? Gray narrowed his eyes. He had a feeling that there must be some unknown secret, but he could not figure it out at the moment. In the end, Gray left the treasury of the Purple Moon Kingdom with doubts about why the mixed blood beast disappeared and returned to the residence that the royal family had arranged for him. All this time, he had thought that there were no mixed blood beasts in this world, but now it seemed that this was not the case. There were mixed blood beasts during the Empire era, but they had disappeared during the Four Kingdoms era. Could it be the work of the Fifth Force, the force that destroyed the Empire? Gray could not help but associate this matter with the Fifth Force, the force that destroyed the Empire. What were the characteristics of mixed abilities? Not all mixed abilities could fight above their level. For example, some auxiliary mixed abilities did not have the ability to fight above their level. However, most mixed abilities had the ability to fight above their level. Due to certain restrictions in the past 1,000 years, other than Blair Blaze, no one had broken through the magic light realm. The highest level they had achieved was a thrice-transformed king level. Thinking about it from another perspective, if evolution herbs were used to promote a blood beast transformation at all costs, The limit of this blood beast growth should also be a thrice transformed king level. What would happen if a thrice metamorphosis king level blood fiend possessed a hybrid ability? It was very likely that it had the ability to fight above its level, and its combat power was comparable to the magic light realm. If it had the combat power comparable to the magic light realm, it would be able to break through the world barrier. This was obviously not allowed by the fifth force, which was the force that destroyed the Empire. Because of this reason, the fifth force adopted a certain method to exterminate the mixed blood beasts. Gray did not know if his guess was correct, but it did not matter. His main goal now was to deal with the fifth force. Before that, he had to improve his strength as much as possible. After locking himself in the bathroom and instructing the servants not to disturb him, Gray took out the blood of the gemstone beast. It was the same red blood as the other blood beasts, but it had a gemstone-like luster. Gray drank it in one gulp. Chapter 580. He couldn't feel anything. After drinking the gemstone beast's blood, Gray didn't feel anything. He didn't feel any pain, numbness, or burn. To be precise, all his senses had disappeared. He had lost the ability to feel anything. Lying in the bathtub, it was as if his body had been petrified. Other than his brain, which could still think, he couldn't do anything else. In this state where he couldn't feel anything, he couldn't even move a finger or open his eyes. It was as if his body didn't belong to him anymore. If an enemy were to attack him at this moment, the only thing he could do was to watch as the enemy's weapon pierced through his body. He wouldn't even feel any pain because at this moment, he no longer had any feelings. This wasn't a good state. Although he didn't feel any intense pain, numbness, or burn like he usually did after swallowing the blood, he had lost control of his body. If he were to encounter an unexpected situation, he would die a horrible death. After more than half an hour, Gray's senses slowly recovered. At the same time, a wave of fatigue hit him. This was normal after every time he swallowed the blood. Although he couldn't feel anything during the transformation, after the end of the transformation, the side effects of the transformation didn't disappear. Instead, they started to feed back to him. After resting for a while, Gray walked out of the bathtub. He took out a set of noble clothes with a deep sapphire embedded in the bow tie and put it on. He walked out of the bathroom and went to the training room. I'll have to forget about the Earth ability test. Looking at the training room built with golden red metal, Gray shook his head slightly and gave up the idea of testing his newly acquired Earth ability here. Although the training room was built with some kind of alloy and had been reinforced by runes, he estimated that it would be difficult for it to withstand his attack, even if it was just a single attack. After all, he was now at the first stage of the king level. I wonder if the gemstone ability and metallization ability can form a mixed ability. With anticipation in his eyes, Gray felt the bloodline ability in his blood. When the bloodline ability merged with the body, it would release some signals to let the body feel the existence of the ability. Under normal circumstances, as long as he felt carefully, he would know what abilities he currently controlled. Of course, this kind of knowledge was quite vague, and it was impossible to have absolute knowledge. He could only sense the existence of this ability, and at most, he could know a little about the ability's bias. After all, a bloodline ability was just a kind of ability. It couldn't speak, and the only reason it could be understood by its owner was just a natural feedback after fusing with the bloodline. No petrification ability. After sensing all his abilities, Gray didn't find the gem petrification ability that should have existed in his body after he swallowed the gem beast blood. He wasn't surprised by this situation, but was happy instead. The characteristic of the metamorphosis ability was that when the newly acquired ability could combine with the original ability in the body to form a stronger ability, it would mutate and form an even stronger ability. Currently, he did not sense the gem petrification ability, which meant that the gem petrification ability had most likely merged with other abilities to form an even stronger ability. If it's mixed with the gem petrification ability, the metallization ability is the most likely because both of them strengthen the body. Let's see if the metallization ability is still there. Carefully sensing his body, Gray searched for the metallization ability in his body. Soon, the joy on his face became even more apparent. The metallization ability also disappeared. The metallization ability that originally existed in his body had disappeared, which confirmed his guess that the gem petrification ability and the metallization ability had combined to form an even stronger ability. He narrowed his eyes and carefully sensed every ability in his body, sensing the new ability. Soon, he sensed a brand new ability. Alloy ability, a body-strengthening ability similar to the metallization ability and the gem petrification ability. It can continuously strengthen the body's defense by consuming the power of blood. This was the characteristic of this ability that Gray sensed. The reason why it was called alloy ability was not because it had a name, but because this ability was a combination of the metallization ability and the gem petrification ability. It was named based on this characteristic. In his previous life, alloy was a special metal formed by the fusion of many metals or metal and non-metal. The combination of the metallization ability and the gem petrification ability was equivalent to the fusion of metal and non-metal, so naturally, it was called alloy ability. Alloy ability. Using the alloy ability, Gray's body suddenly shone with a metallic luster. It was a silver-gray luster with a hint of gray within the silver. It was slightly different from the metallization ability. Originally, when he was a king, after using the metallization ability, the surface of his skin should have shone with a silver metallic luster. However, this alloy ability, which was a combination of the metallization and the gem petrification ability, was silver-gray in color. I wonder how strong my defense will be. Gray's metallized finger tapped his left arm. Suddenly, there was a metallic clang. However, this was obviously not enough to test how strong his defense would be after the alloy ability. It should be at least comparable to a defensive king who has gone through 3 evolutions, right? Gray thought to himself. Originally, before the alloy ability was formed, the metallization ability could increase his defense to the level of a defensive king who had gone through 2 evolutions. Now that the alloy had become even stronger, its defense would increase by a large margin. Therefore, its defense would definitely be comparable to a defense king that had undergone 3 transformations. It might even exceed the defense of a defense king that had undergone 3 transformations. The combination of abilities was not as simple as 1 plus 1. After the combination, the ability or defense would increase by several times. It was possible to exceed the level of a peak king who had gone through 3 evolutions and reach the level of magic light. As for how strong it will be, I'll only know when I fight. After removing the alloy ability from his body, Gray suddenly looked forward to the upcoming battle with the 5th Faction's Magic Light Warriors. Last time, being able to kill Blair Blaze, who had reached the level of Magic Light, was mostly due to luck. Under normal circumstances, it was very likely that he and Dyphony Violet would have lost. This time, it would be a true battle with the Magic Light Warriors because the 5th Faction would definitely be prepared. Whether or not they could compete with the Magic Light Warriors will be determined by the upcoming battle. In the garden of the palace, there was a pavilion built with white jade as the center. Gray, Sophia, Francis, and Hylia sat in the pavilion. On the white jade table beside them, milk tea with ice and vegetables and fruits emitted a refreshing aroma. After taking a sip, the mellow fragrance of the milk tea, the refreshing taste of the summer vegetables and fruits, and the cool feeling mixed together to form a unique taste. It was a perfect match for the slightly hot weather outside. Gray and the other 3 in the pavilion were each doing their own thing. Francis was wiping a long spear with a towel. The spear was black with many silver patterns on its black surface, like a silver plant wrapped around the spear. A hint of danger faintly exuded from the spear, indicating that it was a silver weapon. After becoming a king, Francis was obviously bestowed a silver weapon by the royal family and had a silver weapon of his own. Sophia and Hylia sat opposite each other on both sides of a chessboard, playing chess. The chessboard was black and white in color. It was similar to Western chess, but different. Each side had 20 chess pieces, and the types of chess pieces were named according to the characteristics of the world. Gray was flipping through a rare leather book. On the stone table in front of him, there were several other rare books of the same leather texture. He heard from Francis that the royal family had obtained books about mixed ability blood beasts, so he asked Sophia to help borrow the relevant books from the royal family's library. "Aren't you nervous at all?" Francis had put away his spear at some point. He looked at Gray and asked curiously. As a king, he would also be going to the Scarlet Kingdom's capital this time. Knowing that they were going to confront the fifth faction with the Magic Light Warriors, he could not calm down. Those were the Magic Light Warriors, and if he was not careful, he might be left there forever. Hearing Francis's question, Sophia and Hylia could not help but stop playing chess and look at Gray. Sophia's gaze was faintly worried. Although she was playing chess, she had been quite restless and had lost several games in a row. Hylia's gaze was curious. In the eyes of many of the younger generation, the other party was a legend. The other party's growth was amazing. She was really curious whether the other party was nervous or not. "How can I not be nervous? But even if I'm nervous, it's useless." Putting down the book, Gray shrugged. He was a man, not a god. As long as he was a man, he would inevitably feel nervous when facing a powerful enemy. It was just that he suppressed this emotion. In any case, a trip to the Scarlet Kingdom's capital was inevitable. Since there was no escape, the only thing he could do was to be fully prepared. And now, he was fully prepared and had raised his current strength to the limit. Since that was the case, what he could do was to relax as much as possible to avoid excessive nervousness affecting his combat state. "Are you confident?" After a slight hesitation, Sophia pursed her red lips and asked. Gray looked at Sophia and looked at her for a moment. Then he smiled slightly. "Don't worry, you know my life-saving means. Even if I can't beat them, I'm still confident in protecting myself." Chapter 581. 2 days later, the Purple Moon Kingdom's team set off, including Gray, Francis, and the Kenneth family's King-class powerhouse. There were 7 King-class powerhouses in total. This was the maximum number of King-class powerhouses that the Purple Moon Kingdom could mobilize. Almost all of their King-class powerhouses had left. To a certain extent, they were cutting off all means of retreat. This operation was too important. If they failed, the Purple Moon Kingdom might cease to exist. Therefore, the Purple Moon Kingdom had mobilized all of their available King-class powerhouses. The team did not head to the Scarlet Kingdom. Instead, they headed to the border between the Jewel Kingdom and the Jewel Kingdom, preparing to meet up with the Jewel Kingdom's team. At the border between the Purple Moon Kingdom and the Jewel Kingdom, in a small forest that was only 2 or 3 miles wide, the Purple Moon Kingdom's team and the Jewel Kingdom's team met up. It was hard to imagine that such a small forest, which could be seen everywhere, had gathered more than 10 King-class powerhouses who could shake a kingdom with a stomp of their feet. If outsiders knew about this, this place might become a tourist attraction in a few years' time. However, at this time, the people gathered here were obviously not in the mood to think about this. Their faces were all tense and serious. No wonder we couldn't find any trace of the 5th organization before this. It turns out that the 5th organization doesn't belong to this world. The Jewel Kingdom's thrice-transformed King-class powerhouse, Jennifer Austin, had a serious look on her face. Unlike the Purple Moon Kingdom, which had some ability to resist the 5th organization, the Jewel Kingdom had no ability to resist at all. Therefore, after learning about the Purple Moon Kingdom's plan, although she knew that it was extremely dangerous, she still chose to join. If the Purple Moon Kingdom failed, the Jewel Kingdom's ending would not be any better. This time, the Jewel Kingdom's team that came with her had a total of 6 people, including herself. They were all King-class powerhouses. Facing the 5th organization, King-class powerhouses were the minimum requirement. If they were weaker, it would be no different from sending them to their deaths. That's right. Who would have thought that this force, which only had the strength of an ordinary king when it first appeared, actually came from another world? And it's very likely that it was the culprit that destroyed the Empire 1,000 years ago. Diphony Violet's face revealed a trace of regret. It was a pity that Gray didn't pay enough attention to this force. He regretted that he didn't pay attention to the 5th force because he was busy fighting over the destroyed territories of the Flame Kingdom. If they had been able to find the demonic light warriors before they appeared, with his and Gray's strength, it was entirely possible for them to destroy the demonic light warriors. Unfortunately, the demonic light warriors had already appeared. Wanting to destroy the demonic light warriors would be extremely difficult. Sir Gray, I heard that you determined that the 4 of them were once magic light warriors. Jennifer Austin looked at Gray and asked politely. Yes, I believe that the reason why the 4 of them were able to have magic light level defense was not because they had mastered some kind of magic potion that could strengthen the body, but because they themselves had a realm that was equivalent to their defense. Gray nodded. He had black hair, blue eyes, and a black battle suit. He looked too young, and it was inevitable that he gave people the feeling that his strength was too young. However, no one present dared to look down on him. If the world of the nobles was a world where rank, seniority, and power spoke, then the world of the king was a world where strength spoke. As long as one had strength, nothing else mattered. This way of thinking was very simple and crude, but it was very in line with the style of the king powerhouses. The king powerhouses were a group of people who used strength to override the rules. Why were the 4 of them so weak when they first appeared? In the Jewel Kingdom, a man nodded politely to Gray and asked, I'm not sure about this, but I think it might have something to do with the rules. Gray gave a response after thinking for a while. Rules? The man looked at Gray with a puzzled expression. Yes, it's the rules. Gray nodded slightly and then looked at Francis. Do you still remember what happened to us on that floating island? You're talking about the prohibition of magic weapons? Francis's heart moved slightly, and he blurted out, Yes, I think that there should be some similar rules in our world, such as suppressing the strength of outsiders. Gray glanced at the crowd and voiced his conjecture. Strength suppressed by the rules of the world? The group of king-level masters lowered their heads and pondered for a moment. Indeed, since that island was able to suppress the use of demonic weapons, it was not impossible that their world had rules that suppressed the strength of outsiders. Maybe I know the reason why the 5th Force plundered a lot of ordinary wealth. Francis took a deep breath and said, What reason? Diphony Violet asked hurriedly. Everyone, including Gray, looked at Francis because the answer was too important. To a certain extent, it could affect their attitude towards each other. The 5th Force plundered a lot of wealth. It's impossible to develop their own force and take it away, so it must be used elsewhere. Connecting it to the rules of the world that Gray just mentioned, I think the 5th Force might have mastered some way to circumvent the rules of the world, and this method of circumventing the rules of the world requires a lot of ordinary wealth. Being stared at by so many king powerhouses, Francis felt quite pressured. He quickly finished speaking in one breath. Mastered a way to circumvent the rules of the world? Because they needed a lot of ordinary wealth, they attacked the royal family of the Crimson Kingdom? Yes, it's very likely. Jennifer Austin and Diphony Violet looked at each other and nodded. They felt that this was very likely. If that's the case, we have to hurry. Otherwise, the more time passes, the more their strength will recover. Many of the king powerhouses frowned, thinking of the seriousness of the matter. In order to save time, Gray used spatial teleportation to teleport everyone to a place in the Crimson Kingdom closest to the Crimson Kingdom's capital. The last time the Crimson Kingdom had a beast tide, Gray had passed by the Crimson Kingdom. At that time, he had set up a teleportation point in the Crimson Kingdom. However, because he had not been to the Crimson Kingdom's capital, the teleportation point could not directly lead to the Crimson Kingdom's capital. From a teleportation point, a total of 13 people set off. After traveling for several hours, they finally arrived near the Crimson Kingdom's capital. Hidden in a mountain range near the Crimson Kingdom's capital, Gray and the others stood at the top of the mountain and looked at the Crimson Kingdom's capital from afar. This was a city full of broken walls, just like the capital of the Flame Kingdom. They could clearly see that a large number of houses had collapsed, and the streets were full of cracks of different sizes. The most terrifying place was near the city gate, where there were several bottomless deep ravines. Everyone present was a king powerhouse, but when they saw these ravines, they could not help but feel a chill in their hearts. These ravines were definitely created by a magic light level powerhouse. On the streets, it was extremely deserted. There was not a single person in the huge capital. It was obvious that after the Crimson Kingdom's royal family was destroyed, the residents of the capital had fled. And with the Fifth Force's situation, it was obvious that they did not intend to take control of the city. Therefore, they probably did not stop the residents of the capital from leaving. Let's take a rest first. When it gets dark, we'll sneak into the capital. After a simple discussion between Dyphony Violet and Jennifer Austin, they each gave instructions to the king powerhouses of their respective kingdoms. Gray and the others naturally had no objections, especially Gray. With his night vision ability, it was most advantageous for him to move at night. At night, the curved purple moon hung high in the sky, sprinkling a faint purple light. It was hazy, like a purple veil. A total of 13 king powerhouses from the Purple Moon Kingdom and the Jewel Kingdom quickly sneaked into the capital. The gates of the capital were closed, and there were several patrolling teams with simple rune lights hanging from their waists on the city walls. It was unknown whether they were the subordinates recruited by the Fifth Force after coming to this world, or the remaining guards of the Crimson Kingdom's capital that had been incorporated. Naturally, these guards could not discover Gray and the others who had sneaked in. Very easily, Gray and the others had already climbed over the walls and entered the capital. They were heading towards the only place in the capital that still had light. That place was the former palace of the Crimson Kingdom, which was now occupied by the Fifth Force. Very quickly, they approached the palace. In the palace, they could also see teams of patrolling teams. In addition, the entire palace was very dilapidated. Some of the walls had even collapsed. Obviously, when the Fifth Force destroyed the Crimson Kingdom's royal family, they had a great battle here. Faced with the dilapidated walls of the palace, Gray and the others naturally sneaked in easily. Crack! A hidden sentry was discovered by Gray through his night vision ability. He quietly sneaked into the sentry house. With a gentle squeeze of his hand, the sentry's throat was instantly crushed. Poof! Crack! One by one, the hidden sentry was killed before they could make sound. Although most of them were not proficient in assassination and had not undergone the corresponding training, they were still king-level powerhouses. With the strength of a king-level powerhouse, assassination was very easy. Very quickly, they went deep into the palace. Here, there were several courtyards that were brightly lit. That should be the residence of the Fifth Force. Coming close, Gray and the others were even more careful when they were hiding. The tips of their feet touched the ground, and the sound of every step was suppressed to the minimum. The hearing of powerhouses was extremely sharp. For example, powerhouses like the Magic Light Warriors had even sharper hearing. The slightest movement would probably be detected by the other party. They had no choice but to be careful. It's not good to come uninvited. Suddenly, a male voice sounded. It was not loud, but in this quiet night, it was extremely clear. At some point, the figure of a man appeared on the wall of a courtyard. He stood with his hands behind his back, and his cold gaze swept over Gray and the others like a knife. Chapter 582. We've been exposed. Hearing the sudden voice, the group of king-level combatants tensed up. Their blood fiends attacked out of reflex. The purple flames turned into a giant flaming beast. The khaki-colored light was like a huge axe. The black poisonous gas had a strong, fishy smell. The tentacles that extended from the shadow were so large that it would take several people to wrap their arms around them. More than 10 types of blood fiend abilities were released in an instant like dazzling fireworks, illuminating the entire capital city and attacking the man on the wall in unison. Under the dazzling fireworks, the figure of the man on the wall became clear. It was a middle-aged man, wearing a yellow aristocratic robe. He looked like a middle-aged aristocrat who was good-looking but very ordinary. But this ordinary middle-aged aristocrat was unusually calm in the face of more than 10 king-level combatants. It was as if the attack wasn't at least king-level, but merely a breeze. The middle-aged man, who was the leader of the fifth faction, Derek, snorted. The next moment, with him as the center, an extreme chill spread out. This chill seemed to have the ability to freeze time and space. Under this chill, all the attacks were frozen. The purple flame behemoth was like a giant beast sealed in ice. The surface of the earthen yellow blade froze, as if it had cut an invisible wall. The black poisonous gas froze, as if it had been molded from some kind of fluffy black material. In just one move, the combined attack of more than 10 king-level combatants was blocked. Even the wall under his feet and the entire courtyard were not damaged at all. Magic light combatant. There was no need to ask. At this moment, everyone knew the strength of this person in front of them. To be able to block the combined attack of more than 10 king-level combatants, including thrice metamorphosed king-level combatants, he could only be a magic light combatant. Many of the king-level combatants broke out in cold sweat. Although they knew that their opponent this time would be a magic light warrior, they couldn't help but feel nervous when they actually encountered a magic light warrior. Typhony Violet pulled out her golden weapon from her waist. She held the hilt of her golden weapon with both hands. Her wrinkled face was solemn. Gray used the blood skill Berserk. His body grew at a speed visible to the naked eye. Under the cover of his black battle armor, he turned into a burly man more than 2 meters tall. If you leave now, I can pretend that nothing happened. Derek's expression didn't change in the face of Gray and Typhony Violet, who were in full battle mode. His cold gaze swept across the king-level combatants like 2 sharp knives stabbing into their bodies. Go back, and when you're strong enough, you'll destroy our 2 kingdoms one by one, just like how you destroyed the Scarlet Kingdom. All the king-level masters present sneered. They understood that the 5th force had a way to recover its strength. Naturally, they understood the serious consequences of giving the 5th force time. If I tell you that we have no intention of attacking the Purple Moon Kingdom and the Jewel Kingdom, would you believe me? Derek asked in a condescending tone. Do you think we'll believe you? Typhony Violet sneered. As someone who had lived for hundreds of years, if he believed Derek's words, he wouldn't have lived until now. Whoosh! Suddenly, Typhony Violet slashed out with her sword. In the next moment, a purple flame attacked Derek like a purple meteor under the night sky. Facing Typhony Violet's attack with the help of her golden weapon, Derek's relaxed expression disappeared. This was an attack that could threaten him. He unsheathed the sword at his waist and slashed out. A wisp of white cold air met the purple meteor. Boom! There was a violent explosion. The power of the explosion spread out. The walls and courtyard under Derek's feet could no longer be intact. They shattered under the aftershock. Some of the king-level powerhouses who were closer to the battle were forced back by the shockwaves. At this moment, Gray attacked. He slashed out with his blue sword. The dark green mist turned into a whirlpool. It was like the mouth of a demon attacking Derek. Whoosh! Derek, who was wearing a khaki-colored noble's robe, quickly dodged to the side. His speed was no slower than Blairblazes. As a magic light combatant from another world, his blood technique was naturally no weaker than Blairblazes. Whoosh! The dark green mist whirlpool brushed past him. The sleeve on his arm was instantly corroded and disappeared. The dark green whirlpool swept through the ruins of the courtyard and spread forward. It passed through the palace and extended far into the royal city before finally dissipating. Fortunately, there was no one left in the Scarlet Kingdom's royal city. It had become a dead city. Otherwise, under Gray's attack, at least hundreds or thousands of people would have died. Whoosh! 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 As soon as Derek dodged the dark green whirlpool, khaki-colored light blades, huge shadow tentacles, purple flames, and many other abilities attacked Derek. It was the other king-level combatants of the Purple Moon Kingdom and the Jewel Kingdom. Although these abilities were not as powerful as Gray and Typhony Violet's attacks, and could hardly hurt Derek, they could at least hinder Derek and buy some time for Gray and Typhony Violet. That was enough. Deep in the palace, in the other courtyards. What's going on? Suddenly hearing a violent commotion, Kylie and the few remaining members of the Flame Kingdom's royal family jumped out of the room in a panic. They jumped onto the roof and looked in the direction of the sound. Suddenly, the sky was illuminated by lights of various colors. Under these lights, he saw many people. There was the leader of the 5th Force, Derek, Typhony Violet, and Gray Fergus, who they hated to the core and many king-level combatants of the Purple Moon Kingdom and the Jewel Kingdom. It's the Purple Moon Kingdom and the Jewel Kingdom. I knew they wouldn't leave the Scarlet Kingdom alone. Kylie sneered. After the Scarlet Kingdom was destroyed by the Fifth Force, she guessed that the Purple Moon Kingdom and the Jewel Kingdom would definitely attack. It was not that she thought that the alliance between the Purple Moon Kingdom, the Scarlet Kingdom, and the Jewel Kingdom was very strong. It was because she knew that the Purple Moon Kingdom and the Jewel Kingdom felt threatened by the Fifth Force and would definitely take action. Just you wait, Purple Moon Kingdom and the Jewel Kingdom. You'll soon follow in the footsteps of the Scarlet Kingdom. Once again, a maniacal smile appeared on her face. It was as if she could already see the Purple Moon Kingdom, the Jewel Kingdom, and the Scarlet Kingdom turning into ruins. Your Highness, this place is too close to the battlefield. It's better for us to hide further away. Otherwise, we'll be easily affected. Seeing that their Highness was acting crazy again, the people from the Flame Kingdom looked at each other with pity in their hearts. One of them suggested, "That's good too. I can't die before I see the Purple Moon Kingdom and the Jewel Kingdom being destroyed." Kylie nodded in agreement and retreated with the people from the Flame Kingdom. Ever since the Flame Kingdom was destroyed, her heart had already died. She no longer cared about life and death. All that was left in her heart was hatred. The only reason she didn't end her life was because she hadn't seen the Purple Moon Kingdom and the Jewel Kingdom being destroyed. 2 men and a woman were cultivating in the 3 cultivation rooms that were arranged side by side. As they cultivated, the jewels under their feet were quickly losing their luster. Hearing the explosion, one of the men and the woman quickly stopped training and walked out of the training room. Both of them had the aura of a thrice metamorphosis king. As for the other man, there was a trace of sweat on his forehead. He frowned, but he didn't stop training. A terrifying aura rose from his body and spread in all directions. It had already surpassed the thrice metamorphosis peak king stage, but it was still increasing. It was charging toward the realm above the peak king stage. Looks like the Jewel Kingdom and the Purple Moon Kingdom are attacking. The man and woman who walked out of the training room were Faust and Meryl. They looked at each other and already had some guesses about the battle in the distance. Faust was a short man. He turned around and looked at the closed door. His thick black eyebrows twitched as he frowned. Chaucer is in the critical period of his breakthrough. If he can't break through in one go, it will take him a lot of time to accumulate. We can't let him be disturbed. The 2 of us will guard this place and prevent the Purple Moon Kingdom and the Jewel Kingdom from attacking. Meryl pulled her hair behind her back and tied it into a ponytail. She had a curvy figure and an experienced aura. What about Derek? Facing Diphony Violet, Grey Fergus, and many other kings, can he stop them? Faust's tone was a little worried. It shouldn't be a problem. Blair Blaze died under the joint attack of Diphony Violet and Grey Fergus. Derek should be able to stop them if he's prepared. Meryl said confidently. Boom, boom, boom. Terrifying explosions bloomed in the sky like fireworks. Before the first one dissipated, the second one had already appeared. Facing Grey, Diphony Violet, and more than 10 other kings, Derek displayed his powerful strength and managed to stop them all by himself. However, he wasn't completely unscathed. There were 2 more scratches on his body, one from Grey and the other from Diphony Violet. Of course, the Purple Moon Kingdom and the Jewel Kingdom didn't come out unscathed. 2 kings were just scratched by the shock waves and were already heavily injured. Suddenly, a powerful aura came from afar. Sensing the abnormality of this aura, the kings of the Purple Moon Kingdom and the Jewel Kingdom couldn't help but look in the direction of the aura. This aura? Peak King after 3 transformations? No, that can't be right. The aura is still rising. Could it be that he's breaking through the magic light? Grey was shocked. A trace of shock flashed in the depths of his eyes. Grey wasn't the only one who guessed this. Diphony Violet, Jennifer Austin, and the others were also shocked. Chapter 583. Jennifer, Grey, and I will hold it back here. Take the others and stop him from breaking through. The situation was very urgent, and there was no room for discussion. Diphony Violet quickly made a decision. Understood. Jennifer Austin nodded solemnly and said to the other king-level powerhouses except for Diphony Violet and Gray, "There's a change in the situation. Follow me." Then, she took the lead and ran in the direction of the aura. All the king-level powerhouses followed her, turning into phantoms as they dashed away. "Stay here." Facing the siege of Gray and the others, Derek, who had not been anxious from beginning to end, showed some anxiety on his face. The white cold air turned into a churning sea of fog, intercepting Jennifer Austin and the others while he chased after them. "Take care of yourself first." Gray and Diphony Violet both snorted coldly. Gray swung his long sword, and a large amount of dark green fog appeared with him as the center, turning into a dark green sea of fog, blocking the white sea of fog with a scale no less than the white sea of fog. Chi-chi. The white sea of fog and the dark green sea of fog collided with each other. The scene was extremely spectacular, as if two clouds in the sky moving in opposite directions had collided together. There was a sizzling sound at the point of collision, and then they destroyed each other and quickly disappeared. The ground near them was filled with ice, and traces of corrosion could be seen everywhere. Diphony Violet slashed out a long purple flame wall, blocking Derek's path, separating Derek from Jennifer Austin and the others. With the purple flame wall blocking his path, Derek's face showed anger. He swung his battle sword and immediately split the purple flame wall in half. Then, he quickly chased after Jennifer Austin and the others. At this moment, a dark green giant sword several meters long, with a terrifying power that could split a mountain in half, came slashing toward him. This was not a metaphor, but a fact. After going berserk, Gray, whose combat strength had reached the level of magic light, did indeed have the combat strength to split a mountain in half with one slash. Scram! The anger on Derek's face became even more apparent. He attacked in anger. Because the speed of the saber was too fast, it only left a faint trace in the air as it slashed from left to right. Clang! The dark green long sword collided with a white saber, producing the sound of metal clashing. Cracks spread out from the surrounding ground under the sound of the collision. Then, the ground was quickly corroded by the dark green mist, and a layer of ice was attached to it by the white cold air. Crack! 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 Gray suffered a great loss. His body was unsteady as he retreated backwards. The ground that had been frozen into ice cracked under his feet. The power of Derek's slash was beyond imagination, far surpassing the power of the white mist from before. This kind of power had already surpassed the power of ordinary magic light. His strength has also reached the peak of the same realm. Gray's pupils shrank slightly, and the seriousness in his eyes became even more intense. Previously, because he had the advantage of numbers, he had been attacking from a distance without engaging in close combat. Thus, he did not notice, or rather, give Derek a chance to use it. Now, in order to intercept Derek, he was forced to engage in close combat, and finally gave Derek a chance to use it. The blood technique that Derek cultivated not only reached the peak of the same realm as Blair Blaze in terms of speed, but also reached the peak of the same realm in terms of strength. Simply speaking, Derek's strength alone was enough to contend against ordinary magic light warriors. Careful! Suddenly, Diphony Violet shouted a warning. Derek stomped on the ground, and countless cracks appeared on the frozen ground. His body seemed to have teleported as he caught up to the unsteady Gray. His saber, suffused with cold air, turned into a wisp of misty white light and slashed at Gray's chest. Boom! With a sound like a landslide or a tsunami, extreme strength and coldness exploded on Gray's chest. Gray's black armor blocked Blair Blaze's magic light attack the last time. It also blocked this attack without any damage, but it was inevitable that part of the power passed through the armor and was transmitted to Gray's body. Gray's muscles tensed, and he was prepared to withstand the strong impact and terrifying coldness. But in the next moment, he felt something unexpected. The impact and coldness transmitted through the armor to his body were abnormally weak, and he easily withstood it. No, it was not that the impact and coldness transmitted through the armor was weak, but that his current defense was abnormally strong. He did not even feel much, and he had already withstood the impact and coldness. The effect of the alloy ability. Gray's eyes lit up. The reason for this situation was obvious. The only difference between this time and the last time he fought Blaze was that his metallization ability and gem petrification ability had combined to form an alloy ability. And it was this alloy ability's strong defense that allowed him to withstand the opponent's attack that was more powerful than Blaze's. How can his defense be so strong? Derek felt that his saber was like a stone sinking into the sea. It did not hurt Gray at all, and it did not even repel Gray. It did not affect Gray in the slightest. Derek was shocked. The strength and speed of the blood technique that he cultivated had reached the peak of the same realm. The destructive power of his strength alone was enough to contend with those of the same realm. The combination of his strength and the blood beast ability was even more powerful than those of the same realm. But such a powerful attack did not affect his opponent in the slightest. Although he was surprised by the alloy ability's strong defense, Gray naturally would not be distracted in battle. After withstanding Derek's attack, he immediately slashed at Derek with his sword. Whoosh! The dark green longsword was like a flash of green light as it slashed at Derek's waist, intending to cut Derek in two. Although he was shocked by Gray's strong defense, as a magic light warrior, Derek naturally would not be distracted. After his attack failed to hurt Gray, he had already retreated. But he was now too close to Gray, so close that Gray could casually slash him with his sword. Pooh! A neat cut appeared on Derek's clothes, and a deep wound appeared on his waist. Blood spilled out, and a trace of dark green could be faintly seen. He had been poisoned by Gray's blood beast ability. Of course, with the opponent's strong body as a magic light warrior, the poison would not affect him in a short period of time. Whoosh! This was not the end. Diphony Violet swung her sword, and purple flames with terrifying heat fell from the sky like a meteorite burning with purple flames crashing towards him. He quickly dodged to the side, but his body was a little unbalanced under Gray's sword just now, and could not immediately adjust. Although he tried his best to dodge, he still could not avoid it. TCH, the purple flames brushed past his back and spread all the way forward, leaving behind a river of magma. On his back, his clothes were burned, and a burn appeared. How can his defense be so strong? Is it because of the armor on his body? Feeling the numbing pain on his waist and the burning pain on his back, Derek's expression finally became serious, and he no longer had any thoughts of intercepting Jennifer Austin and the others. This was because he realized that his current situation was also very bad. If he was not careful, it was very likely that he would be like Blaze, who he ridiculed as the disgrace of magic light. He would be killed by these two people in front of him who were obviously not magic light. In that case, even if he died, he would be nailed to the pillar of shame. Someone's coming. Jennifer Austin and the others who rushed towards the aura were immediately noticed by Meryl and Faust. Sensing that there were quite a number of people, the two of them became serious and rushed out of the courtyard, taking the initiative to greet Jennifer Austin and the others. A golden blade floated in the air in front of Meryl, releasing streaks of golden shadows that attacked. Dark green mist appeared in front of Faust, turning into spears made of dark green mist that pierced through the air. Boom, boom, boom. Facing the area of effect attacks, Jennifer Austin and the others who were rushing towards the aura could not help but stop. They either dodged or blocked the incoming attacks. In the sky, fireworks of various colors continued to sound, illuminating the night sky as if it was daytime. Leave two people behind them. The rest of you, follow me and attack. Be careful. Both of them are thrice metamorphosis kings. Jennifer Austin ordered as she tore apart the incoming attacks with an axe. Whoosh! As she spoke, she slashed down with the crystal-like axe in her hand. The dirt-yellow light turned into a giant blade, leaving a deep trench in the ground as it attacked Meryl. Facing an attack from a thrice metamorphosis king, Meryl did not dare to be careless. The golden blade in front of her stopped its golden shadows and turned into a streak of golden light, meeting the dirt yellow light head-on. Boom! The dirt yellow light exploded, and the golden blade also shot back, returning to Meryl's side. This was clearly the first test between the two. In the next moment, the dirt yellow light and the golden blade attacked again, clashing once more. The two attacks collided again and again. As thrice metamorphosis kings, neither of them dared to be careless, because carelessness would only lead to death. On the other side, 8 kings surrounded Faust. The abilities of the blood beasts merged together, forming a chaotic but orderly attack. They attacked Faust and clashed with his attack. Boom, boom, boom. Although none of them were thrice metamorphosis kings, there were 8 of them. There was no lack of twice metamorphosis kings among them. They successfully blocked Faust's attack and held him back. Whoosh, whoosh. The 2 thrice metamorphosis kings of the 5th faction were blocked. The remaining 2 kings of the Purple Moon Kingdom and the Jewel Kingdom began to move. They circled around the battlefield and went straight for the courtyard where the aura came from. Chapter 584. What a terrifying aura! Of the 2 people who rushed towards the courtyard, one was from the Purple Moon Kingdom, while the other was from the Gemstone Kingdom. Sensing the terrifying aura coming from the courtyard, the 2 of them could not help but turn solemn. There was no doubt that the person in the courtyard was trying to break through to the magic light realm. If they allowed him to break through to become a magic light warrior, it would be a disaster for both kingdoms. Just one magic light warrior was enough to make them feel pressured, let alone 2 magic light warriors. If that happened, they would really be in despair. Attack! The 2 of them quickly approached the courtyard and attacked the courtyard without hesitation when they reached a suitable place to attack. Whoosh! 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 The King-class elite of Purple Moon King thrust his spear through the air. Icicles appeared out of thin air, one after another. They whistled through the air like ice bombs as they rained down on the courtyard. Although he was a member of the Purple Moon Kingdom's royal family, the blood technique he practiced was not the Purple Moon Kingdom's most popular blood technique, the Purple Flame Beast technique. Instead, it was a blood technique of the ice technique. Whoosh! The Jewel Kingdom's king-class fighter swung his axe. A bright yellow light whistled through the air and slashed diagonally towards the courtyard. Boom! Under the cold ice and the yellow light, the courtyard exploded as if it had been hit by a terrifying bomb. All the buildings were blown to smithereens. Large amounts of earth and rocks flew everywhere. A large amount of smoke and dust filled the air. The huge courtyard was forcibly wiped out, turning into ruins. The aura has disappeared. Feeling that the aura in the ruins of the courtyard had disappeared, the 2 of them could not help but sigh in relief. Their goal was not to kill the other party, but to prevent the other party from breaking through. No matter what, the other party was still a thrice metamorphosis king-class fighter. With their strength, even if the other party was unprepared, it would be difficult to kill the other party. Therefore, their goal from the beginning was to prevent the other party from breaking through. Now that the other party's aura had disappeared, it must have been affected by their previous attacks. The other party's breakthrough state had been broken, and he had retreated from it. Let's retreat. Even if the opponent's breakthrough is stopped, he's still a thrice metamorphosis king. He's not someone we can fight against. Now that their goal had been achieved, the 2 of them prepared to retreat and meet up with Jennifer Austin and the others. At this moment, a powerful pressure suddenly appeared in the ruins filled with smoke and dust, locking onto them. It was as if a terrifying giant beast was looking at them from within the smoke and dust. This was a pressure that was enough to make their hair stand on end. In an instant, cold sweat appeared on their foreheads, and their bodies involuntarily trembled. Not good, retreat. The 2 of them were horrified. They bit their lips, causing blood to seep out. Under the stimulation of pain and the smell of blood, the 2 of them broke free from the pressure and quickly retreated. Whoosh! From the ruins, a gray-robed figure rushed out and chased after them like a ghost. So fast! How could it be so fast? Could it be? Cold sweat drenched their hair, and a bad premonition appeared in their hearts. The fear in their hearts magnified infinitely. and their faces turned pale because of fear. Split up. Without any hesitation, the two of them split up and fled in different directions. Whoosh! Their strategy of splitting up worked. After all, there was only one person in the gray-robed figure, and it was impossible for him to chase after the two of them at the same time. He gave up on the Jewel Kingdom's king-class figure and chased after the Purple Moon Kingdom's king-class figure. The Jewel Kingdom's king-class figure let out a sigh of relief, while the Purple Moon Kingdom's king-class figure had a look of despair on his face. Behind him, the sound of chasing footsteps was quickly approaching. Ah! With a blood-curdling scream, the Purple Moon Kingdom's king-class figure's expression of despair froze. His body was cut in half at the waist, and blood splattered everywhere. His body flew forward a few dozen meters under the force of inertia, then fell to the ground with a thud. Hearing the scream, the Jewel Kingdom's king-class figure immediately understood that the Purple Moon Kingdom's king-class figure had been killed. While his speed did not decrease, he felt a sense of relief. Fortunately, the person chasing after him was not him. Although he had exchanged someone else's life for his own, he did not feel guilty at all. When one of them was destined to die, no one would want to be the one to die. However, the relief in his heart did not last for long. His expression turned to one of fear as he sensed movement behind him rapidly approaching. "They're chasing after me." Sweat kept dripping down his forehead, and his hair and clothes were completely soaked. He ran as fast as he could, but the distance between them was still rapidly closing. The fear in his heart was infinitely magnified, and his originally strong willpower was now in a daze. Knowing that he could not escape, he stopped running and roared madly, trying to overcome his fear with his roar. He activated his gem petrification ability, and a layer of gem petrification appeared on the surface of his body. With the battle axe in his hand, he chopped at the person chasing after him with an aura of desperation. Puff! Before his battle axe could land, a black dagger slashed across his neck. His powerful defense after gem petrification could not stop the dagger at all. The dagger easily pierced through his neck and came out from the back. Blood splattered a few meters high, and his round head rolled on the ground like a rubber ball. Thud! The headless body fell down powerlessly. The battle axe was still tightly held in his hand, but he did not have the chance to swing it out. Beside his corpse, a figure in gray appeared. It was a skinny man with a goatee. It was the last person from the fifth organization, Chaucer. Magic Light Warrior. Naturally, Jennifer Austin and the others had noticed what had happened to the two of them. However, before they could rescue them, the two of them had already died. There was no time to lament the deaths of the two. A chill spread through the hearts of Jennifer Austin and the other remaining king-level powerhouses. To be able to kill two king-level powerhouses so easily and at such a terrifying speed, the other party's realm was very likely Magic Light rank. He broke through. Jennifer Austin's old face was unprecedentedly solemn. They still could not stop him. He had already broken through to become a Magic Light Warrior. How could this be? Some of the king-class figures were shocked. Even with their strong nerves, they could not help but slow down and stop attacking. Magic Light Warriors were not on the same level as them, and yet another one of them had appeared. A trace of helplessness spread through their hearts. What should we do? Some of the king-class figures looked bitter. Facing one Magic Light Warrior was already very stressful. Facing two Magic Light Warriors, there was no way they could win. Oh no, that person broke through. In the distance, Gray and Diphony Violet, who were working together to force Derek into a disadvantageous position, could not help but be shocked. They looked in the direction of the pressure. This level of pressure was obviously a Magic Light Warrior who had broken through to become a Magic Light. The situation was developing in the worst direction. They had failed to stop him, and he had broken through to become a Magic Light Warrior. If it was just one Magic Light Warrior, the two of them could work together and kill him. However, now that another Magic Light Warrior had appeared, even the two of them could not help but feel nervous. Sir Diphony, you're faster than me. I'll hold him off here. Hurry and go help over there. With the strength of Jennifer Austin and the others, there was no way they could stop a Magic Light Warrior. Gray gritted his teeth and said to Diphony Violet, "Okay, be careful." Diphony Violet looked at Gray and hesitated for a moment. Finally, she nodded slightly to Gray and quickly left the battlefield, running in the direction of the other Magic Light warrior. Humph! Seeing Diphony Violet retreat, Derek snorted coldly and slashed with his sword. A wisp of extremely cold air extended into a long river of ice, attacking Diphony Violet. Whoosh! Gray appeared in front of the cold air. He did not draw his sword and make a move with great momentum. He merely stood there in an extremely ordinary manner. Bang! The cold air crashed into him, and then his body swayed slightly. After that, there was no more. His body was like an immovable mountain, completely blocking the cold air without taking half a step back. Then he slashed with the sword in his hand, and a dark green sea of fog gushed out, covering the sky and covering the earth as it surged wildly towards the surrounding area. Whoosh! Derek dodged and avoided the dark green sea of fog, but he was also blocked by the dark green sea of fog. He could only watch as Diphony Violet rushed to the other side. I never thought that there would be a day when I would be in such a sorry state after recovering my magic light power. Derek's eyes were gloomy when he failed to stop Diphony Violet from leaving. At this moment, his clothes were in tatters, and his body was covered with wounds of varying sizes. Among them, there were 3 that were the most serious. There was a deep wound on his waist and back, which was caused by Gray. There was a serious burn on his chest, which was caused by Diphony Violet. He originally thought that after recovering his magic light power, he would be able to flatten any faction in this world. He never thought that he would be blocked by 2 existences who were not magic light, and even be suppressed to the point of being at a disadvantage. His face was extremely ashen. When he first learned that Blair Blaze, who had broken through magic light, was actually killed by Gray Fergus and Diphony Violet, he called them the disgrace of magic light. But not long ago, he almost followed in their footsteps and became the disgrace of magic light. It was a ruthless slap to his face, causing it to swell up. I admit that with your current defense, I can't do anything to you at all. Derek's heart was filled with shock as he gazed at Gray, who was blocking Diphony Violet's escape route. His opponent's defense had exceeded his expectations. He really did not expect that in this world, which had been restricted by the planar origin formation and had not seen magic light for more than 1,000 years, there would be an existence with such a terrifying defense. Taking a magic light attack head-on with a small price could be done by a defensive-type magic light, but at the same time, being able to use one's physical body to dissipate the power of the attack was not something defensive-type magic light could do. This kind of situation usually indicated that the opponent's defense far exceeded the limit of his attack. In other words, the opponent's current defense was very likely comparable to that of second-grade or even third-grade defensive-type magic light warrior. Even though the armor on his body and some kind of blood skill that could increase his defense were enough to surprise him. After all, the opponent was only a king. Thankfully, the opponent was not without weaknesses. In fact, the weakness was very obvious and could be easily targeted. When he thought of this, his voice became cold. You don't have much blood energy left, do you? Chapter 585. You want to use a recovery potion? Don't worry, I can guarantee that you won't have a chance. Derek's eyes were cold as he stared at Gray, paying attention to Gray's every move. Fortunately, his opponent couldn't stay in this state for long due to his blood skill. Otherwise, he really wouldn't be able to do anything to him. Thinking of this, the blade in his hand was filled with white mist as he slashed out continuously. Swish, swish, swish. Streaks of white cold air attacked Gray, leaving wide rivers of ice on the ground as they spread towards Gray. The originally hot summer night turned into a world of ice and snow in an instant, as if winter had arrived. Boom, boom, boom. With Gray's speed, it was naturally difficult for him to dodge the attacks that were as powerful as magic light at such close range. Streaks of white cold air hit Gray's body one after another. Although Gray's body trembled slightly and blocked them without causing any damage to Gray, it wasn't for nothing. Under such a dense barrage of attacks, Other than being forced to endure the repeated collisions of the white cold air, there was nothing else Gray could do. If he took out a recovery potion to replenish his blood power, it would probably be frozen and shattered by the surrounding cold air as soon as he took it out. And if he counterattacked, it would only deplete his blood power even faster. Of course, even if he didn't counterattack, as long as he was in a berserk state, his blood power would be quickly depleted. This was Derek's goal. He wanted to use continuous attacks to deplete Gray's blood power. Once Gray's blood power was exhausted, Gray's powerful defense would naturally disappear. After killing the two kings, magic light was rushing over. Cold sweat slid down Jennifer Austin's forehead. She knew that they couldn't fight against it with just a few of them, so she made a prompt decision and ordered, "Retreat, we'll meet up with Tefuni and Gray." The other kings had already intended to retreat, so they immediately retreated upon receiving the order. However, Meryl and Faust clearly didn't intend to let them retreat so easily. Their attacks became even fiercer, not aiming to attack, but only to restrain the 9 of them. Moreover, the speed of magic light wasn't something kings like them could compare to. Whoosh! Chaucer appeared in front of a Jewel Kingdom king-class warrior like a ghost. His black dagger pierced through the defense of the Jewel Kingdom king-class warrior and stabbed into his chest. Poochie! The tip of the sword pierced through the back of the Jewel Kingdom king, causing him to spit out a mouthful of blood. However, he did not die immediately. Knowing that he was going to die for sure, he leaned forward and hugged Chaucer tightly with his eyes filled with madness. He wanted to use his own death to buy a chance for his companion to escape. Puff, puff. Chaucer, who was being hugged by the Jewel Kingdom's king-class expert, revealed a cruel smile. The sword that was stabbed into the heart of the Jewel Kingdom's king-class expert quickly crossed left and right. Patter, patter. The body of the Jewel Kingdom's king-class expert was split into 4 halves. Blood splattered on Chaucer's face. Chaucer merely wiped it off with his hand and looked at the next king-class expert. This time, he had his eyes on the Purple Moon Kingdom's king-class expert, Fitch Violet. His body seemed to have teleported as he appeared in front of Fitch Violet. Knowing that he was doomed, Fitch Violet smiled bitterly and gave up on defense. His spear was surrounded by purple flames as it pierced towards Chaucer's chest. Clang! The purple flame's spear stabbed into Chaucer's chest, but it only pierced through his clothes and couldn't go any further. It was as if it had hit some kind of alloy that had an unimaginably strong defense. It couldn't even push Chaucer back. The opponent's terrifying magic light defense easily negated the attack. He wasn't affected at all. Chaucer then gently swung the 1-meter-long black dagger in his hand. A dark green mist drifted out and enveloped Fitch Violet. Fitch Violet melted like a wax figure at a speed visible to the naked eye, letting out a final cry of pain. Lord Fitch! Francis's eyes were wide open. Among all the king-class experts, other than his father, the one he had interacted with the most was this elder, who should have been his grandfather's generation. Now, this elder had died tragically in front of him. Although he knew that this operation was extremely dangerous and was prepared for his own death, he still couldn't help but grieve when he saw his dear elder die in front of him. His grief-stricken voice attracted Chaucer's attention. Chaucer looked at him like a falcon looking at its prey. Francis was filled with grief and anger. His eyes were red as he stared back at Chaucer. Even though he knew that Chaucer's strength wasn't something he could fight against, he didn't show any signs of fear. Chaucer's lips curled up slightly, as if he had found his prey. His body flashed as he rushed towards Francis. Francis's vision quickly enlarged. Despair filled Francis' heart. Whoosh! At that moment, a purple flame appeared. Under the night sky, it attacked Chaucer like a purple meteorite. Sensing the terrifying power of this attack, Chaucer's calm expression changed. He couldn't care less about rushing towards Francis. Instead, he stomped on the ground and retreated quickly. TCH. The purple flames brushed past his body and left a red and swollen burn on his body. He looked in the direction of the purple flames and saw an old man holding a golden saber rushing over quickly. Lord Tefoni, seeing Tefoni Violet rushing over, The king-class experts of the Purple Moon Kingdom and the Jewel Kingdom all let out a sigh of relief. Magic light could only be countered by magic light. Although Diphony Violet wasn't a true magic light, with a golden weapon, she could at least display the power of magic light. At least, she had a chance to fight it. What about Lord Grey? Some people looked in the direction of Grey and Derek with worry. Diphony Violet had rushed over, which meant that Grey was facing a magic light warrior alone. This made them worried. Grey was facing a true magic light warrior who wasn't a magic light warrior. He was probably in a very bad situation. Don't worry. With Lord Grey's defense, even magic light won't be able to hurt him. Diphony Violet shook her head and said in a low voice, "A second magic light warrior has appeared in the 5th faction. The situation has completely exceeded our expectations. I'll hold this person off. You guys retreat first. Do you think you can leave? Do you think you can hold me off by yourself?" The corners of Chaucer's mouth curled up slightly. He looked at Diphony Violet with a hint of contempt, just like Derek when he first fought with Grey and Diphony Violet. After becoming a magic light warrior, his strength had increased tremendously. King-level warriors were no longer a threat to him. Even if his opponent was Diphony Violet, who wielded a golden weapon and could display the power of magic light, it was still the same. Woo! He waved his dagger, and a dark green mist with a fishy and sweet smell attacked Diphony Violet. It was obviously highly toxic. Whoosh! Diphony Violet didn't dare to be careless. She poured the power of her blood beast into her golden dagger. The purple flames turned into a purple light and met the dark green mist head-on. Using a golden weapon consumed a lot of his blood power. Fortunately, he had taken a bottle of high-grade recovery potion before he rushed over. His blood power had recovered. Whoosh whoosh. The poison was burned away by the purple flames. Diphony Violet blocked the poison attack, but he didn't relax. This was because Chaucer had taken the opportunity to rush towards him from another direction. He was still a thrice metamorphosis king. Although his combat strength was comparable to Demon Shine's by relying on his gold weapon, his close-range combat ability was obviously inferior to Demon Shine's. Chaucer naturally understood this, so he directly targeted Demon Shine. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. At this moment, Jennifer Austin and the other king-level warriors acted at the same time. A large number of blood beasts covered Chaucer's path, preventing him from approaching Diphony Violet. However, although they stopped Chaucer from approaching Diphony Violet, they were also pinned down. They couldn't retreat as Diphony Violet had instructed. "Let's see how long you can last." A sneer appeared on Derek's face as he continued to attack Grey. In his eyes, Grey had already become a prey trapped in a cage. As long as he could wear down the outer layer of defense, he would be able to easily kill him. What a good plan. Despite being targeted, Grey's expression under his black battle armor didn't change much. He didn't have much blood force left, and he didn't think that his opponent couldn't do what he said. If he still had the chance to take a recovery potion under his opponent's continuous attack, then his opponent might as well kill himself. However, this was under normal circumstances. Last time, when he replenished his blood force, Blair Blaze had an opportunity to injure him. He had already thought of a way to deal with this. Whoosh! Blood force triggered the purple ring, and something appeared in Grey's hand. However, it wasn't a high-grade recovery potion. Instead, it was a translucent crystal ball. The fog in the crystal ball transformed into various shapes. This crystal ball grew from a very strange fog plant. The fog in it not only obscured one's vision, but also had a strong hallucinogenic effect that could make one lose their sense of direction. Blood force poured into the crystal ball in his hand. In the next moment, a thick white fog suddenly spread and quickly covered a radius of about a mile. It shrouded him and Derek, who was not far away, in the fog. This was what Grey thought of. When his blood force was insufficient, he could buy time to replenish it. Grey had verified that the white fog wasn't an ordinary fog. It was thicker than ordinary fog, but it didn't dissipate as easily as ordinary fog. Even the power of magic light required several hits to dissipate it. It also had the ability to cause hallucinations. Those who were in it would completely lose their sense of direction. This was enough to buy time for him to take a recovery potion. Chapter 586. Do you think you have a chance just because you're hiding in the fog? His vision was suddenly filled with fog, and everything in front of him turned white. Derek didn't panic. Relying on his memory before his vision was blocked by the fog, he slashed in a direction with his sword wrapped in cold air. Pooh! With this slash, a fog-free area appeared in the fog, and all the fog in the area was frozen and disappeared by the cold air just now. However, when he saw this area without fog, Derek's expression changed slightly. No, he can't be so fast. According to his original estimation, Gray's figure would be exposed under his slash, but he miscalculated. He didn't see Gray's figure. In fact, the moment his vision was filled with the white mist, his sense of direction was already affected by the white mist. He thought that he was striking in Gray's direction, but in fact, he was striking in a direction that was ridiculously wrong with Gray's direction. The surrounding fog was surging towards the fog-free area, and it seemed that the fog-free area would be filled with fog again. This fog is strange. Derek's expression was gloomy. He vaguely guessed that it was because of the fog. He slashed again, and this time, he didn't target Gray. He wanted to tear the fog apart because as long as the fog dissipated, Gray's figure would be exposed. Whoosh! The terrifying cold air surged forward like a wave, trying to tear the fog apart. However, the fog wasn't torn apart. Although the fog became thinner, it still didn't dissipate. Gray had already tested it. Even a magic light attack needed several attacks to completely exhaust the fog and make it disappear. Gulp! Gray calmly took out an advanced recovery potion, cut the bottleneck, and drank it in one gulp. His almost exhausted blood force was quickly restored, and he was soon back to his best state. Even now, Derek still couldn't make the fog dissipate completely. Through the fog that was completely transparent to him, Gray looked at Derek, who was continuously slashing at the fog. A cold smile flashed in his eyes. Beside him, the figure of an old man holding a long spear appeared. It was the already dead Blair Blaze. This was a trump card that Gray had prepared for this battle. He was not going to reveal it easily. Once he did, he would definitely catch his opponent off guard and try to injure or even kill him. Originally, the specter formed by Brel Inferno's soul was a pretty good method to deal with at night. If he was faced with a magic light level blood fiend, he was even confident that he could use this to kill it. However, the effect of this method on humans was greatly reduced. Although not everyone had the ability to control lightning or fire, humans could achieve this effect with magical weapons. Just now, when he and Diphony Violet were fighting the middle-aged man together, they saw the middle-aged man using the magical weapon in his hand to display the power of lightning. Puff! Derek unleashed another wave of cold air. Finally, after a series of slashes, the fog was completely torn apart and dissipated. He regained his normal sense of direction. Whoosh! Suddenly, he heard a rapid movement behind him. His expression changed abruptly as he slashed his saber horizontally behind him. However, his opponent was too fast. Before he could slash his saber behind him, a long spear had already pierced his back. His back was pierced through. Although it wasn't serious, he couldn't help but stagger and lose his balance. At this moment, from the other side of his back, a giant dark green blade attacked him with great precision. Puff! Unsurprisingly, the dark green giant blade slashed him in the back. Its power was much stronger than the spear just now. A deep wound appeared on his back. His whole body was in a sorry state as he fell forward like a dog eating feces. It was obvious that he had been heavily injured by the attack. A king-level expert from the Jewel Kingdom couldn't dodge in time and was cut in half by a black dagger from the top of his head. Blood and internal organs splattered all over the ground. Holding the black dagger, Chaucer had a cruel sneer on his face as if he was looking at his prey, trapped in a cage. After today, the Purple Moon Kingdom and the Jewel Kingdom will become history. Joining forces with Meryl and Faust, two thrice-metamorphosed king-level experts, one magic light, and two thrice-metamorphosed king-level experts completely suppressed Diphony Violet and the others. As long as this continued, the Purple Moon Kingdom and the Jewel Kingdom would be wiped out in one fell swoop. This is bad. Diphony Violet held a golden saber in her hand. Her wrinkled face was solemn. She was completely suppressed and couldn't even escape. What should we do? If this continues, we'll really be wiped out here. Jennifer Austin's face was solemn. She thought of Gray, who was fighting on the other side, but then she smiled bitterly and shook her head. With Lin Ming's boundary, it would already be a miracle if he could block a demon light warrior and not die under its attacks. As for supporting them, that was impossible in her opinion. At this moment, a white mist suddenly filled the air in the distance. Even in the dark of the night, they could still see it clearly under the light of their blood fiend's abilities. Then, they saw attacks coming from the white mist. Surprisingly, the white mist wasn't torn apart by the attacks. However, after several attacks, the white mist eventually dissipated. At this moment, a figure flew out and crashed heavily on the ground. Under the bright night sky, they clearly saw that the figure was the magic light warrior from the 5th organization. His Excellency Gray has the upper hand. The eyes of the kings who had sunk to the bottom suddenly lit up. Perhaps if they held on for a while longer, His Excellency Gray would be able to kill that magic light warrior and rush over to support them, hoping that an existence that wasn't Demon Shine would be able to kill Demon Shine. If this were any other time, they would definitely think that this idea was absurd. But at this time, under their desire to survive, they actually thought that there might be a chance. Gray. Francis's eyes were full of astonishment. As peers, he was only a beginner king, but Gray was already able to force Magic Light Warrior into a disadvantageous position. The gap between the two was like a chasm. Not good. Something happened to Derek. The scene of Derek being injured by Gray naturally fell into the eyes of Chaucer and the others. Anxiety flashed in their eyes. They no longer cared about surrounding Diphony and the others and rushed in the direction of Gray and Derek's battle. Let's go too. Otherwise, His Excellency Gray will definitely be at a disadvantage against two Magic Light Warriors. Looking at each other, Diphony Violet and Jennifer Austin led the people of their respective kingdoms and rushed in the same direction. Both of them were shocked. In a situation where he was fighting a Magic Light Warrior alone, Gray actually had the upper hand. Whoosh! Derek, who had been sent flying by the dark green blade, had just climbed up from the ground when Blair Blaze rushed towards him with a spear in hand. The spear pierced towards him. As a speed-type Magic Light Warrior, Blair Blaze's speed was at the top of the Magic Light Warriors. Bang! Another wound appeared on Derek's chest. He couldn't help but retreat. At this moment, the dark green blade slashed towards him again. It looked like he wouldn't be able to dodge it. At this moment, another dark green mist appeared. Rumble! The dark green giant blade collided with the dark green fog and exploded. A huge corroded pit appeared on the ground around it. In the next moment, Chaucer appeared beside Derek and stood side by side with him, facing off against Gray. He looked at Gray with a scrutinizing gaze. He didn't expect Derek to be at a disadvantage in a one-on-one battle. Whoosh! Soon, two more figures appeared. It was Merrill and Faust. His Excellency Gray. Beside Gray, there were also several figures rushing over. They approached Gray and formed a faint standoff with him. It was Diphony Violet and the others who had rushed over. Good move, what a good move. With the crisis averted, Derek's expression was uncertain. His gaze fiercely swept past Gray and Blair Blaze. He didn't expect them to control Blair Blaze's corpse and not take it out immediately. Instead, they took it out at the critical moment. If Chaucer hadn't come to his rescue in time, he might have died at their hands. You guys aren't bad either. You have two Magic Light Warriors. Gray had already noticed that the Purple Moon Kingdom and Jewel Kingdom's teams were missing 5 people. One of them was a familiar face. Gray's expression also darkened. Their opponents were only injured, but they had lost 5 kings. Both sides' eyes were filled with murderous intent. Their auras collided with each other. Perhaps in the next moment, another battle would break out. How about we stop here? We don't have a direct conflict. There's no need to fight to the death. After taking a deep breath and forcefully suppressing the anger in his heart, Derek said, "You make it sound nice. You've already destroyed the Scarlet Kingdom. Who knows if the Purple Moon Kingdom and Jewel Kingdom will be your next target?" Many of the kings harumphed coldly. They obviously didn't believe him, especially those who had friends who had died in the battle just now. Their eyes were bloodshot, and their faces were filled with hatred. Derek thought for a moment, then said, "You probably know our identities." "That's right. We come from another world. Our goal is the weapon on the planar origin formation. We have no intention of taking control of this world, so we have no direct conflict with you." "Then how do you explain the Scarlet Kingdom?" Diphony Violet laughed coldly. "To be honest, we need a large amount of wealth to recover our strength, so we attack the Scarlet Kingdom's royal family. Now that the Scarlet Kingdom's royal family has enough wealth for us to recover our strength, we won't attack the Purple Moon Kingdom and Jewel Kingdom again." Derek seemed to be very sincere. He actually took the initiative to reveal that they needed a large amount of wealth to recover their strength, even though Gray and the others had already guessed this. "What do you think?" Diphony Violet looked at Jennifer Austin. If possible, he naturally hoped to destroy the fifth faction to prevent future trouble. However, it was obvious that they were at a disadvantage when facing the other party who had 2 magic light. In this case, they had to carefully consider whether to continue fighting or to make peace. This was because if they were careless, they could very well be wiped out. One could imagine what would happen to the Purple Moon Kingdom and the Jewel Kingdom if they lost them. "I need to discuss this with the other kings," Jennifer Austin said in a deep voice. This was a decision that concerned the life and death of her kingdom, so she had to be cautious. "What do you think?" Diphony Violet looked at the remaining kings of the Purple Moon Kingdom, focusing on Gray. Gray's strength was really beyond his expectations. He was actually able to gain the upper hand in the battle with magic light. It could be said that a large part of the reason the fifth faction proposed a ceasefire was because of Gray. It was precisely because of this reason that Gray's opinion was extremely important. Even as the decision-maker of the Purple Moon Kingdom, he had to consider it carefully. Chapter 587. The king-tier powerhouses of the Purple Moon Kingdom, including Gray, began to discuss in a low voice. After a while, the discussion came to a conclusion. Diphony Violet looked at Derek and asked, "How can you prove that you won't attack the Purple Moon Kingdom and the Jewel Kingdom for the sake of looting their wealth?" "We can take you to the Scarlet Kingdom's royal treasury. I believe that after you see the remaining wealth in the treasury, you'll understand that we won't attack the Jewel Kingdom and the Purple Moon Kingdom for the sake of wealth." After a moment of silence, Derek looked at Gray, who had a cold expression, and said, Gray's strength and his ability to create fog made him wary. Although he had 2 magic light on his side, he was still not confident that he could kill Gray. On the contrary, his side might suffer losses. For the sake of the final blood sacrifice, this was absolutely not allowed. This was the fundamental reason why he was willing to make peace. Just as Derek's gaze moved away from Gray, Gray's gaze imperceptibly glanced at the crystal ball in his hand. The fog was almost completely gone. His expression was cold, and there was no change in his expression. The fog in the crystal ball looked like an ordinary fog, but it was not an ordinary fog. Every time it was destroyed in a battle, it had to be nourished with magic crystals. Therefore, the crystal ball could no longer be used in a short period of time. Not being able to use the crystal ball meant that he could no longer use the crystal ball's ability to buy time and assist in the battle like before. In the case of facing 2 magic light, even with the help of Diphony Violet and the others, the possibility of winning was almost 0. However, he naturally could not say this out loud. Moreover, he could not weaken his momentum and let the 5th organization notice. If he can really prove it, we agree to a truce. After the Jewel Kingdom's discussion came to a conclusion, Jennifer Austin glanced at the remaining 2 king-tier powerhouses and said, They came with 6 people, but now there are only 3 left. The loss was not small. They originally thought that they might die here today, but because of Gray, they survived. The huge loss had made them lose the will to fight. If the 5th organization could prove that they would not attack the Purple Moon Kingdom and the Jewel Kingdom for the sake of wealth, they were willing to stop the war. The Purple Moon Kingdom has the same intention. Diphony Violet also expressed her opinion. In this battle, the Purple Moon Kingdom had lost 2 people, which was not a small loss. Although Gray had unexpectedly suppressed a magic light, the situation was still not optimistic. Most importantly, If they could confirm that the fifth organization would not attack the Purple Moon Kingdom and the Jewel Kingdom, there was no need to fight. Of course, this did not mean that the previous battle was useless. The deaths of the 5 king-tier powerhouses were meaningless. If they did not show enough strength to make the fifth organization fearful, they would not propose a truce. They would not guarantee that they would not attack the Purple Moon Kingdom and the Jewel Kingdom. Although the fifth organization did not plan to rule this world, they would definitely not mind destroying the Purple Moon Kingdom and the Jewel Kingdom's royal families to see if they could get some good stuff. The reason why they made such a guarantee was because the Purple Moon Kingdom and the Jewel Kingdom had shown enough strength to make the fifth organization fearful. Then, everyone, please follow us. Derek breathed an almost imperceptible sigh of relief and led the way. Before this, he did not mind destroying the Purple Moon Kingdom and the Gemstone Kingdom. This was also the reason why he made a promise to Kylie. He could crush them at will, and he could even get some good things from the other party's treasury. Why wouldn't he do it? However, the strength that the Purple Moon Kingdom and the Jewel Kingdom had shown was enough to make them fearful. They could not easily crush them and could easily cause casualties. This was the reason why they made the guarantee. Under the lead of the fifth organization, Gray and the others went to the Crimson Kingdom's treasure vault. Along the way, they had to be cautious of each other. After all, there was no trust between the two organizations. This was a huge treasure vault. Its size was no less than the Purple Moon Kingdom's royal family's treasure vault. Under the rune lights, there were colorful lights shining. There was a lot of wealth in the treasure vault. On one hand, it was because the Crimson Kingdom's royal family had accumulated a lot of wealth for thousands of years. On the other hand, the Crimson Kingdom's royal family had obtained a lot of wealth from the Flame Kingdom's royal family. We agreed to a truce. After seeing the large amount of wealth in the treasure vault, they knew that the fifth organization would not attack the Jewel Kingdom and the Purple Moon Kingdom for the sake of wealth. The Purple Moon Kingdom and the Jewel Kingdom finally agreed to a truce and left the Crimson Kingdom's capital that very night. After the previous battle, the Crimson Kingdom's palace had been completely turned into ruins. You really don't plan to attack the Jewel Kingdom and the Purple Moon Kingdom? Chaucer frowned and asked in dissatisfaction. As a magic light tier powerhouse, he was actually forced to take the initiative to back down. In his opinion, it was a humiliation. He was filled with rage. He could not wait for the 4 of them to recover their strength and wipe out the 2 kingdoms to vent his anger. Yes, I really don't plan to attack the Purple Moon Kingdom and the Jewel Kingdom. Derek nodded and explained. Gray Fergus is a very strange person. His defense is very strong. Before his blood energy is exhausted, even a magic light tier attack won't be able to hurt him. Moreover, he has a lot of tricks up his sleeves. If we fight to the death, he might really be able to kill 1 or 2 of us. For the final blood sacrifice, none of us 4 can die. Indeed, for the final blood sacrifice, we can't take the risk. It's not worthwhile to provoke the Purple Moon Kingdom and the Jewel Kingdom for this. Meryl agreed. She understood Gray Fergus's strangeness very well. Unknowingly, deep in her heart, she actually had the thought of not wanting to become enemies with him. Most importantly, the benefits of attacking the Purple Moon Kingdom and the Jewel Kingdom were not proportional to the risks. It was not worthwhile to complicate things. I have no objections, Faust said with a shrug. Last time, he had been forced to hand over his runic space bag by Gray, and that had left him feeling extremely humiliated. Originally, he had planned to return to the Demon Light boundary and then find Gray to settle accounts with him. But after today's battle, he had given up on that idea. Derek, who was already in the Magic Light tier, was not a match for Gray Fergus. Even if he recovered his Magic Light tier, he might not be a match for Gray Fergus. Lord Derek, didn't you promise me that you would attack the 3 kingdoms? Hearing the discussion of the 4, Kylie, who had rushed over after seeing that the battle had ended, felt as if she had heard a bolt from the blue. When she heard that Derek was going to attack the 3 kingdoms, she was very excited. It was as if she had grasped at a life-saving straw. She gave all the treasures she had taken from the Flame Kingdom's treasury to Derek. When she saw that the Scarlet Kingdom had been destroyed, she was very excited. She could not help but look forward to the fifth faction attacking the Purple Moon Kingdom and the Jewel Kingdom and destroying the three kingdoms. But now, the fifth force was no longer prepared to attack the other two countries. This news was like a blow to her head, and her world became gloomy. The situation has changed, so I made some adjustments. But don't worry, my promise will not change. No one will survive. Derek glanced at Kylie, and a strange smile appeared on his face. No one will survive? Kylie's eyes lit up. She raised her head and looked at Derek, puzzled. Her intuition told her that Derek was not lying, but why was he so sure that no one would survive? Who was he referring to? That's right, no one will survive. Derek glanced meaningfully at Kylie as he spoke. Chaucer, Merrill, and Faust smiled coldly. There was a reason why the Empire from 1,000 years ago had tried to stop the planar origin formation even at the cost of its own life. After using spatial teleportation to leave the Scarlet Kingdom and enter the Purple Moon Kingdom, Gray and the others finally stopped to rest and treat their injuries. There were 13 of them when they left, but now there were only 8 left. Everyone's eyes were filled with sadness. They did not say a word as they treated their injuries. The atmosphere was silent. Diphony Violet looked at everyone present, sighed, and comforted them. Although 5 people sacrificed their lives for this and paid a great price, this battle was not meaningless. At least we have ensured the safety of the Purple Moon Kingdom and the Jewel Kingdom in the future. Indeed, we have shown enough strength to make the fifth faction wary in this battle. I believe that the fifth faction will not dare to attack us casually in the future. Jennifer Austin also comforted them. The king-level powerhouses present naturally understood this, but they could not help but feel sad. Those were companions who had lived with them for hundreds of years. Gray's lips were tightly pursed, and he did not say a word. The goal of this battle had indeed been achieved. They had shown the fifth faction their strength and forced them to promise not to attack the Purple Moon Kingdom and the Jewel Kingdom. Of course, the price they paid was also extremely heavy. 3 king-level powerhouses from the Jewel Kingdom and 2 from the Purple Moon Kingdom had died, and one of them was familiar with him. Planar origin formation? He thought of what the fifth faction had said. It was obvious that the planar origin formation that they were talking about was the gigantic runic array. They were indeed aiming for the unknown grade of magic weapons on the planar origin formation. Why did the Empire from 1,000 years ago want to stop the fifth faction at the risk of its own destruction? Thinking of the Empire that was destroyed 1,000 years ago, he could not help but feel worried. He had a vague feeling that the process of the fifth faction taking away the magic weapons would cause serious and irreparable damage to this world. If it was possible, even if it was just to put an end to this possibility, he should have destroyed the fifth faction. Unfortunately, against 2 magic light powerhouses, he had almost no chance of winning. Otherwise, even if it was a little risky, he would have fought to the death. Now, he could only hope that before the fifth faction took away the magic weapons, his strength would increase to another level, and he would have the strength to defeat or even kill the 4 magic light powerhouses. That's right, from magic light powerhouses, because the other 2 from the fifth faction should recover their magic light realm soon. The only fortunate thing was that after the 4 of them recovered their magic light realm, the rapid growth of their strength would stop. However, the rapid growth of his strength would not stop. Chapter 588. In the morning, in Sophia's residence in the capital of the Purple Moon Kingdom, there was a flash of light. The remaining 5 king-class powerhouses of the Purple Moon Kingdom, including Gray, appeared on a purple runic circle imprinted on the ground. Gray, Big Brother, Lord Tifuni. As soon as the 5 of them appeared, someone called out to them with a slightly excited voice. Sophia, Hylia, and the Purple Moon King were standing beside the purple runic circle. The 3 of them looked slightly drowsy, and there was a hint of tiredness on their faces. They had probably stayed up all night and had been waiting here. The 3 of them soon found that there were only 5 people left in the team of 7. Their hearts skipped a beat, and they could vaguely guess what happened to the 2 they did not see. Lord Tifuni, could it be that the other 2 elders have already? The Purple Moon King asked after a slight hesitation. Yes. Diphony Violet nodded with a heavy voice. There was a hint of sadness in her eyes. She sighed and said after a moment, "The strength of the fifth faction was beyond our expectations. When we rushed over, we happened to meet another person who had broken through to magic light." "What? Another person from the fifth faction broke through to magic light? There are two magic light? Then you?" The Purple Moon King, Sophia, and Hylia's expressions changed drastically, and there was shock in their eyes. According to their estimates, the Purple Moon Kingdom and the Jewel Kingdom had a chance of winning against the fifth faction who had one magic light. After all, Gray and Diphony Violet could both exert the power of magic light, and even had the record of killing magic light together. However, there is absolutely no hope of winning against two magic light, because neither Gray nor Diphony Violet were real magic light, and could not compete with real magic light. It's all thanks to Sir Gray defeating one of the magic light that the fifth force proposed a ceasefire out of fear. Otherwise, we might have been wiped out. Diphony Violet glanced at Gray, her eyes filled with emotion. Originally, they had already fallen into the encirclement of the fifth influence's Demon Shine and two thrice Metamorphosis King-level powerhouses. It seemed as if they wouldn't be able to escape. Luckily, Gray had defeated one of the Demon Shine's Demon Shine, causing the fifth influence to feel some fear. His Excellency Gray defeated one of the Magic Light and forced the fifth organization with two Magic Light to initiate a ceasefire. The Purple Moon King's eyes were filled with astonishment as he looked at Gray in shock. Sophia and Hylia were also looking at Gray in surprise. There was a hint of joy in Sophia's eyes, while Hylia's eyes were filled with deep amazement. "It's not all my fault. I felt that the fifth faction didn't want any casualties, so they proposed a ceasefire." Gray shook his head slightly and did not claim credit. That was the truth. Although he had suppressed one of the Magic Light players, the fifth faction with two Magic Light players still had the absolute advantage. They would never propose a ceasefire just because of him. Since it was the fifth faction who initiated the ceasefire, what about the safety of the Purple Moon Kingdom and the Jewel Kingdom in the future? Sophia thought for a moment and asked. "The fifth faction has already guaranteed that they won't attack the Purple Moon Kingdom and the Jewel Kingdom." Francis continued. "Is it credible?" Sophia frowned. The fifth faction's guarantee was not as enforceable as the aristocratic agreement. After all, no faction could force the fifth faction to enforce it. It should be credible. The fifth faction has the means to rely on ordinary wealth to restore their strength. They attacked the Scarlet Kingdom's royal family to plunder the Scarlet Kingdom's royal family's wealth. Francis frowned slightly and then relaxed again as he explained. Now that the Scarlet Kingdom's royal family's wealth is enough for them to restore their strength, there's no need for them to attack the Purple Moon Kingdom and the Jewel Kingdom. After staying in the Imperial City for 3 days and attending the funerals of the two dead king-level individuals, Gray returned and brought the Fergus family members who were hiding in a stronghold back to Fergus Castle. He did not mention the worry that the fifth faction's retrieval of the magical weapons might have a serious impact on the world, because it would only add to other people's worries. Facing the increasingly powerful fifth faction, the Purple Moon Kingdom and the Jewel Kingdom no longer had the ability to resist. Even if they knew about it, it would only add to their worries and fear. Moreover, he could not completely trust the fifth faction. He had already sent the two people who were resurrected by him to the Purple Moon Kingdom's Imperial City and the Jewel Kingdom's Imperial City, respectively. These two people would usually hide in the Purple Moon Kingdom and the Jewel Kingdom's Imperial City. He did not even intend to tell them that the Purple Moon Kingdom's Imperial City and the Jewel Kingdom's royal family were the Purple Moon Kingdom and the Jewel Kingdom's royal family. Once they discovered the fifth faction's invasion, the two of them would immediately contact him on the spiritual level, and he would be able to rush there in time through spatial teleportation. After returning to the Fergus family, Gray returned to his daily cultivation. Now, if he wanted to increase his strength, he would need to increase his realm. If he wanted to increase his strength by consuming the blood of the blood fiends, he would also need to increase his realm. Whether he wanted to increase his strength by normal means or by consuming the blood of the blood fiends, he would need to increase his realm. Increasing his realm had become his top priority at the moment. He vaguely felt that the Fifth Faction's process of retrieving the magic weapons was not as simple as retrieving them. During this process, he was afraid that it would cause an extremely serious impact on this world. This made him urgently want to have the strength to contend with or even kill the four of them before the Fifth Faction retrieved the magic weapons from the planar origin formation. However, increasing his strength required time, and what he lacked the most now was time. It was as if he was racing against time. If he could have the strength to contend with or even kill the four of them before the Fifth Faction retrieved the magic weapons from the planar origin formation, then he should be able to resolve the crisis. If he could not have the strength to contend with the four of them before the Fifth Faction retrieved the magic weapons from the planar origin formation, then there would be extremely serious consequences. Because of this, the number of times he cultivated the blood technique had changed from 1 in the morning and 1 in the afternoon to 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon, and 1 in the evening. He cultivated 3 times a day. If he could, he even wanted to cultivate 4 or 5 times a day. However, cultivating 3 times a day was already his limit. Excessive cultivation would only harm his body, so he could only give up. 3 months passed unknowingly. In the evening, in the Fergus family dining room, the Fergus family gathered together for a meal, including Barbara. The Fergus family now had a total of 11 people. It could be said that it was already an extremely lively family. There was laughter and chatter at the dining table, and the atmosphere was quite lively. Eating the soft, desolate-grade blood fiend stew, drinking the high-quality red wine produced by the winery, and listening to the Fergus family chatter, Gray felt a kind of warm atmosphere. This was worth protecting, but he didn't know how long this warmth would last. The Fifth Faction was like a sword hanging over his head, and Gray didn't dare to relax. After dinner, the Fergus family didn't disperse. As usual, they would chat for a while. Earl Fergus took off his napkin, leaned back in his chair, and asked Bernal, not caring about his image, what happened to the blood fiends that appeared near Dirk Town. I've already asked Sir Bart to find them and kill them. Bernal wiped his lips with a napkin and replied. Bart was a former member of the Inferno Fong that Gray had brought back from the Flame Kingdom. He had the strength of a desolate grade, and had now joined the Fergus family's guards. While he was in charge of the Fergus family's safety, he was also under the command of the Fergus family. Were the losses this time big? Earl Fergus asked. Not too big. The blood fiends weren't enraged. Only a few passers-by died from the blood fiends' attacks. Bernal shook his head. Hearing the conversation between the two, Gray couldn't help but frown and ask, do the blood fiends often leave the forest and attack the villages and towns recently? Ever since the Fergus family's territory expanded into an earl's territory, there would be a few blood fiends attacking the villages and towns every year. Just like how humans invaded the blood fiends' territory, the blood fiends would also invade human territory. It was already a common occurrence. However, the blood fiends' attacks seemed to be too frequent recently. This was the second time he had heard of a blood fiend attacking a village and town in the past month. Yes, it has indeed become more frequent. But don't worry, with the people you brought back, all the blood fiends that attack the villages and towns will be killed before the destruction spreads. Bernal waved his hand. How's the situation in the other territories? Gray's eyebrows didn't relax. From the blood fiends' frequent attacks on the villages and towns, he smelled a trace of abnormality. The situation is similar. The blood fiends' attacks are also frequent. I heard that the entire Purple Moon Kingdom is the same. Earl Fergus continued. The entire Purple Moon Kingdom is the same? Gray's frown deepened. It was obvious that this was very abnormal. It was still summer, so there should be plenty of food. Logically speaking, the blood fiends shouldn't leave the forest and attack the villages and towns so frequently. He couldn't help but feel a trace of worry. In his previous life, before an earthquake, the birds and beasts would become restless and display abnormal behavior. Could the blood fiends' frequent attacks on the villages and towns be a sign of some kind of mutation? The next day, 2 visitors arrived at Fergus Castle. Gray personally received them because they were Gray's acquaintances. They were 2 young ladies who looked rather similar. Both of them had rather eye-catching light purple eyes and long eyelashes. However, one of them wore a purple dress and looked rather mature and dignified, while the other wore a green dress and looked rather lively and playful. They were a pair of sisters. They were the sisters from the Cumberland Marquis family, Jessica and Audrey. Feel free to speak your mind. As long as it's within my capabilities, I will definitely not decline. Seeing that the two of them were probably here for a visit, Gray said straightforwardly. He didn't have many close friends. If his friends needed something and he was able to do it, he naturally wouldn't decline. Yes, I do have something that I need your help with. Seeing Gray's attitude, Jessica heaved a sigh of relief. Although Gray's strength had grown to a level that she could only look up to, he was still the same old Gray. I need your help to kill a king-tier blood fiend. Chapter 589. Kill a king-level blood fiend? Can you elaborate? Gray looked at Jessia in surprise. For him, killing a king-level blood fiend was not difficult. He could do it without even lifting a finger. Of course, he had to help. After all, it was not too much trouble. However, he was a little curious as to why she wanted to kill a king-level blood fiend. A while ago, blood fiends appeared almost every day near the Night Forest in the Cumberland Territory. Many villages were attacked by blood fiends. Jessia's voice was grave. Sensing that something was amiss, the Cumberland family sent people into the Night Forest to investigate. They discovered that a king-level blood fiend had left the depths of the Night Forest and came to the outskirts of the forest. Jessia looked at Gray, her voice pleading. You know that the Cumberland family does not have the ability to kill a king-level blood fiend. Therefore, I have no choice but to shamelessly ask for your help. A king-level blood fiend had actually come to the outskirts of the forest. This was a very serious matter. If it left the forest, then many cities would be in trouble. Many sizable cities in history have been destroyed by king-level blood fiends. However, a king-level blood fiend like this was not something the Cumberland family could contend against or kill. It was for this reason that she thought of asking Gray for help. Although she could also ask the royal family for help, it was obviously faster to ask for help from Gray. A king-level blood fiend has actually come to the outskirts of the forest. Gray was slightly surprised. Although there were many records of king-level blood fiends attacking and destroying cities in history, in reality, it was very rare for a king-level blood fiend to leave the forest. The probability of it happening was not high. After all, king-level blood fiends usually lived in the depths of the forest, where food was abundant. Generally, they would not leave the forest for reasons such as food. Now that a king-level blood fiend had actually come to the outskirts of the forest, Gray could not help but feel that there was something unusual behind the frequent attacks by blood fiends. In the end, Gray left Fergus Castle with the sisters. He had decided to kill this king-level blood fiend himself. Although Barnet Neum had the strength of a king-level blood fiend and the enhancement of a silver weapon, he could not end the battle in a short time. It would easily trigger a beast tide, especially now that the king-level blood fiend was in the periphery of the Night Forest. Gray still remembered the beast tide that happened in Sydney Territory. It also happened around the Night Forest, but it happened in Sydney Territory. Because of that beast tide, many villages near the Night Forest in Sydney Territory became uninhabited. Naturally, he didn't want to attract a beast tide to the Cumberland Territory during the process of killing the king-level blood fiend. Therefore, he decided to do it himself. Only with his strength could he kill the king-level blood fiend in the shortest time possible. He had been continuously cultivating in the castle for more than 3 months. He treated it as a vacation for himself. Even if he went out, his daily cultivation would not be interrupted. In fact, it did not affect him much. Sir Gray, I'll have to trouble you this time. Gray arrived at Cumberland City in a carriage with the sisters. He was warmly welcomed by the Cumberland family. Marquis Cumberland led the enfeoffed nobles to welcome Gray at the city gates. This was the highest level of courtesy. Usually, only princes and princesses would receive such treatment when they went out. However, Gray's current status was not inferior to the princes and princesses. It was only natural that he received such treatment. Marquis Cumberland was in the same carriage as Gray, Jessia, and Audrey. He looked middle-aged, and one could vaguely see the handsomeness of his youth. However, his hair was a little sparse. He looked at Gray with a slight sigh. When he first met Gray, Gray was already showing his edges. However, he would never have thought that Gray would grow to this extent. Even he could not help but feel slightly nervous when facing Leyland. This was brought about by the huge difference in status and strength. "You're welcome, Marquis Cumberland," Gray replied courteously. He was not arrogant, but he could still feel Marquis Cumberland's slight nervousness. No matter how courteous a king-level powerhouse was, his status as a king-level powerhouse would never change. When people who were far weaker than him saw him, they would always involuntarily think of his status and involuntarily feel nervous, even if they knew that he wouldn't hurt them. Gray was already used to such situations. King-class experts were all aloof. On one hand, it was because they had lived for a long time and had experienced too much. There were many things that could no longer affect their emotions. On the other hand, it was because the people around them would subconsciously fear them and act extremely reserved. It was impossible to communicate with them naturally. After staying in Cumberland Castle for a night, Gray, Marquis Cumberland, Jessia, and the sisters set off for the Night Forest the next day. As they approached the Night Forest, they would pass by some villages from time to time. They could clearly see traces of blood fiends' destruction in these villages. There were collapsed wooden fences and collapsed houses. There were even puddles of dry blood in some places. There were people in the villages, but it was obvious that these people's faces were filled with sorrow and numbness. Facing the death of their loved ones and facing an uncertain fate, they were at a loss without strength and did not know where to go. Seeing these people, Gray shook his head slightly. This was the sorrow of those without strength. Without strength, they did not have the ability to protect their loved ones. Without strength, they could only live a life of fear and trepidation, not knowing when they would lose their lives. Although we sent more people, the area around the Night Forest is too vast. We can't guard it all. Seeing Gray looking at these villages, Jessia's purple eyes carried a tinge of sadness as she spoke. Some nobles treated the commoners in their territory like livestock and did not care about their lives. As long as there were not too many casualties, they would not care too much. This was because as people died, there were also people born. The number of dead could be quickly replenished. The Cumberland family was not such a family. They placed great importance on the lives of the commoners in their territory. Therefore, after the Blood Fiend attack, they immediately sent more people. Unfortunately, they did not have enough strength. They simply did not have that many people to guard this place. This is not because of you. It can be seen that the Cumberland family is loved and respected by the commoners. Gray comforted her. Along the way, when their carriage passed by, they could clearly see that the commoners looked at the Cumberland family's carriage with respect and admiration. It's a pity that we can't give them the protection they deserve. Jessia smiled bitterly and shook her head. She was now involved in the governance of the Cumberland territory. In a few years, she would take over the Cumberland territory. She felt deeply guilty for not being able to give the commoners the protection they deserved. This was why she had shamelessly gone to the Fergus family to seek help from Gray. You can't be blamed for this. After all, it's a king-level blood fiend. This matter would cause a headache for any family. Gray shook his head and looked at the Night Forest not far away. There must be a reason why the king-level blood fiend left the Night Forest. He planned to enter the Night Forest to investigate after killing the king-level blood fiend. After arriving at a small town near the Night Forest, they found out the latest location of the king-level blood fiend from the team monitoring it. The group entered the Night Forest and set off towards the location of the king-level blood fiend. That king-level blood fiend is by the river in front. A middle-aged man pointed at a rather wide river in the distance. He lowered his voice and said solemnly, "That's right. You're going to have a hard time." His name was Luke, and he was the captain of the Cumberland family scouting team. He used to be a hunter who joined the Cumberland family by chance and obtained the opportunity to cultivate blood techniques, becoming a blood warrior. Because he was a hunter, he was very adept at tracking blood fiends. This time, the team that discovered the king-level blood fiend was led by him. We'll stop here. You guys wait for me here. Gray nodded slightly to Marquis Cumberland, Jessie, and her sister before striding towards the river in the distance. Don't. Lord Marquis, quick, stop him. Luke and the other members of the scouting team widened their eyes when they saw Gray actually walking towards the river. Cold sweat slid down their foreheads as they looked at Marquis Cumberland in panic and horror. When he heard that the Marquis was coming, he thought that it was just a routine inspection and would only take a look from afar. He did not expect that someone would actually plan to approach the king-level blood fiend. He had experienced firsthand the terror of a king-level blood fiend. Even if they hid and monitored from afar, they would still be easily discovered by a king-level blood fiend. Because of this, their scouting team had already lost a few people. Now, this young man was actually daring enough to approach the king-level blood fiend. If the king-level blood fiend was alarmed, none of them would be able to survive. Captain Luke, there's no need to panic. To others, a king-level blood fiend is extremely dangerous, but to him, a king-level blood fiend is not dangerous at all. Marquis Cumberland waved his hand to interrupt Luke. His gaze was slightly respectful as he looked at Gray's back. A king-level blood fiend was also dangerous to a king-level warrior, but that did not apply to this person in front of him. Lord Marquis, who is he? Wiping away the cold sweat on his forehead, Luke looked at the calm Marquis Cumberland in astonishment. On the way here, he could see that the Cumberland family was very polite to this young man. He had thought that he was a disciple of some large family, but now it seemed that he was not as simple as that. He is Duke Fergus. You should have heard of him. Jessie's gaze was complicated as she looked at Gray's back. Chat? He is Duke Gray Fergus? Luke and the other members of the scouting team could not help but be stunned. They had naturally heard of Duke Gray Fergus, who had the battle record of killing magic light and was conferred the title of Duke by the Purple Moon Kingdom. However, such a person was too far away from them, as far away as the stars in the sky. They had never thought that they would actually meet him one day and interact with him for so long. Chapter 590. Splash. As he approached the river, the clear sound of water splashing against the rocks on the shore reached Gray's ears. Gray saw the king-level blood fiend that had come to the outskirts of the night forest. In the river, a huge creature was moving, seemingly fishing. It was a huge blood beast in the shape of a bear. Its body was 13 to 14 meters long, and its fur was yellow in color, as if it had rolled around in the mud. There was no doubt that this was a king-class blood fiend. Moreover, Gray recognized the species of this king-class blood fiend. It was a king-class blood fiend, Earth Bear. It was a king-class blood fiend with earth element abilities. It was worth mentioning that its strength and defense were at the peak of its realm. As a king-level blood fiend, the Earth Bear had a terrifying sense of smell and perception. Although Gray had tried his best to conceal his tracks, he was still discovered immediately. Roar! The great Earth Bear let out a roar, baring its white teeth and dripping saliva. Its huge brown eyes revealed a fierce glint. On its forelimbs, which were exposed above the water, sharp claws gleamed coldly like curved blades. A strong king-level aura emanated from it, making it look inexplicably ferocious. Boom! With a heavy leap, the Earth Bear immediately jumped out of the river, which was dozens of meters wide, and came to the shore. It was now less than 100 meters away from Gray. Perhaps it felt that Gray was too calm, but the Earth Bear did not rush at Gray. Instead, it opened its huge mouth, and a foul stench wafted out. Then, in front of him, a large amount of mud floated up, turning into a ball of mud with a diameter of more than 10 meters. Then, with a whistling sound, it hit Gray. Whoosh! The wind howled, and the strong wind pressure was like a blade, causing leaves to fall from the surrounding trees. Some branches were also broken by the wind. This was an extremely powerful blow. If it were a desolate blood warrior, he would probably be smashed into meat paste. Even a king-level warrior would have to be careful when dealing with it. But Gray, who had already fought with magic light warriors, naturally did not feel much about this kind of power. He took the initiative to meet the huge, earthy yellow ball of mud. Puff! The sword in his hand gently slashed, and a green light flashed. The huge yellow mud ball was cut in half from the middle, and Gray's figure quickly rushed toward the Bear of the Earth. Roar. The earth bear felt threatened when it saw Gray, who had split open the yellow mud ball and was charging at it. It felt even angrier. As a king-level blood fiend, it had never been provoked like this before. With a furious roar, it swung its gigantic bare paw at Gray with gleaming sharp claws. While moving quickly, Gray dodged slightly to the side and avoided the giant bear paw. The giant bear paw slammed into the ground, and the surrounding area quickly collapsed with the giant bear paw as the center. At this moment, Gray leaped up and crossed paths with the earthen bear with the dark green greatsword in his hand. The dark green greatsword slashed towards the earthen bear's throat. Puff! The dark green greatsword was like a divine weapon. It easily cut through the earthen bear's defense, which was at the peak of the same level, and slashed its throat. Blood splattered dozens of meters high. The dark red blood was mixed with a trace of dark green. That was the poison in Gray's mixed ability. Plop! The dying bear of earth, which should have been violently struggling and wantonly wreaking havoc, fell straight to the ground. Its body twitched slightly, and it struggled to stand up, but it could not control its body. The mixed ability was not an ability that was inclined towards the evolution of poison. Therefore, although it had the ability to produce poison, it was not too strong. When fighting with magic light, the effect was not too strong. But even if it was not an ability that was inclined towards the evolution of poison, the poison in the mixed ability was, after all, fatal to blood fiends like the Bear of Earth. Once its body was contaminated with poison, it would not be able to control its body, and it could only wait for death in despair. In the end, this Earth Bear died silently and completely. You can come over now. After greeting Marquis, Cumberland, and the others, Gray began to collect the Bear of Earth's blood. The Bear of Earth's blood was naturally useless to him, who was now a king-tier beast. However, it was extremely useful to the Fergus family. Apart from that, the Bear of Earth's flesh was also extremely good stuff. The bear paws, in particular, would taste extremely delicious after being meticulously cooked by a top chef. Because of the attack just now, the Bear of Earth's body was poisoned. However, this was not a problem for Gray. After all, he was the one who used the poison. Naturally, he had a way to get rid of the poison. He easily got rid of all the poison in the Bear of Earth's body, and then began to collect its blood. When Marquis Cumberland, Jessie, and her sister arrived, they saw a 13 to 14 meter long bear-shaped king beast lying dead on the ground. Beside it, Gray was collecting the blood of the bear-shaped king beast. The only wound on the bear-shaped king beast's body was at its neck. There was a cut on its throat, and it was this wound that took the life of the bear-shaped king beast. He killed a king-tier blood beast in one blow. Marquis Cumberland and Jessie's mouths were dry. They looked at each other in dismay. Although they knew that killing a king-tier blood beast was definitely not a difficult task for Gray, they did not expect it to be so easy. He actually killed a king-tier blood beast in one blow. Originally, they were still worried that it would cause a beast tide and had already set up a defensive line outside the night forest to hunt down the blood fiends that had fled out of the forest. Now it seemed that it was completely unnecessary. Is this the strength of Duke Fergus? Locke and the other members of the expedition team were stunned on the spot, their mouths agape. Some of them could not help but rub their eyes. To them, king-tier blood beasts were the embodiment of disaster. They were behemoths that absolutely could not be resisted. Once they encountered one, they would definitely die. To king-tier blood beasts, Duke Fergus was probably the same behemoth. Once they encountered one, they would definitely die. This strong contrast left them deeply shocked. Quick, help His Excellency Fergus collect the blood. They only came back to their senses when Marquis Cumberland instructed them. They hurriedly took out their rune bags to help collect the blood. Standing on the body of the bear-shaped king beast, they once again felt the enormity of the bear-shaped king beast. They were even more in awe of Duke Fergus, who could kill such a huge bear-shaped king beast. I'm preparing to enter the depths of the night forest to investigate. We'll say our goodbyes here. After nodding slightly to Marquis Cumberland and Jessie, a pair of greenish-black wings sprouted from Gray's back. He took to the sky and flew towards the depths of the night forest. Gray gave some of the earthen bear's blood and flesh to the Cumberland family. To the Cumberland family, the blood and flesh of king tier blood beasts were extremely precious. However, to Gray, it was something that could be hunted at any time. He did not value it too much. By the riverside where the bear-shaped king beast had been killed, Gray had already left. Even his figure could no longer be seen. However, there was still a pair of eyes looking in the direction he had left. They did not look away for a long time. It was Jessica's gaze. Her beautiful purple eyes had a complicated expression. It took her a good while before she completely looked away. Sigh. Marquis Cumberland glanced at Jessica and sighed in his heart. He opened his mouth, but in the end, he did not say anything. There were some things that one could understand, and even more so understand the rational way to do things. However, humans were complex creatures. In fact, it was very rare for them to follow the rational way of doing things. Relying on his king tier speed, Gray entered the depths of the night forest in a few hours. When he reached the depths, his flying speed slowed down. He was not too high above the ground in the sky as he sized up the depths of the night forest. The night forest was like its name. The vegetation was extremely lush. Being in the forest was like being in the middle of the night. This was especially true in the depths of the night forest. Occasionally, one could see a large area of collapsed vegetation. There were also traces of various destruction. There should have been a battle between powerful blood fiends there. Gray became extremely conspicuous as he flew above the night forest. From time to time, blood fiends would attack Gray from the ground. There were even birds and beasts flying in the sky, treating Gray as their prey. Gray naturally did not hesitate to kill these blood fiends and stuff them into his space storage to replenish his inventory. Why are there so many dead plants? In front of him, a strange situation attracted Gray's attention. A large patch of strange plants appeared in front of him. The plants were all pitch black, as if they had been soaked in black ink. They spread across an extremely wide area. With his plant ability, he could clearly feel that these plants were dead. There was no trace of life in them. Slightly surprised, Gray followed the dead plants and flew forward. After flying for a few miles, all he could see were pitch-black, lifeless plants. This area was like a forbidden zone for life. There were no plants that were lucky enough to survive. What's going on? There is no doubt that the death of these plants was very strange. It was definitely abnormal. Screech. After flying for a while, a sharp, ear-piercing sound suddenly attracted Gray's attention. His heart skipped a beat, and he flew in the direction of the sound. After flying for 2 to 3 miles, he arrived at the direction of the sound. One could imagine how sharp the sound was and how far it traveled. That is, among the pitch-black plants, a huge black mass attracted Gray's attention. Although it was the same black color as the surrounding plants, it was obviously not a plant. This was because this black mass was moving. The way it moved was completely different from ordinary blood fiends. This was because it did not use its legs to move. Instead, it used thick tentacles. Chapter 591. What kind of creature is this? Gray looked at the giant beast in surprise. Its huge body was more than 10 meters tall, and each of its tentacles was a meter thick. Its body was round, and there were many thick tentacles on its body. It looked like an octopus from his previous life, but it did not have eyes. He had never seen an introduction to this kind of giant beast in any books, and its thick tentacles gave Gray the feeling that he had entered the wrong set. It should have appeared in the water, not in the forest. Screech. This giant beast had extremely sharp senses, and it quickly discovered Gray, who was observing from the sky. Its body twisted, and its giant mouth faced Gray's direction. The next moment, a huge black beam of light shot out from its giant mouth. It shot into the sky and attacked Gray. Whoosh! In front of Gray, the dark green fog rolled and turned into a huge shield, protecting Gray. Bang! The black beam of light hit the dark green fog shield, and the dark green fog was damaged. After rolling for a while, it finally blocked the black beam of light. It's comparable to a second metamorphosis king-tier beast. Gray was slightly surprised. When the giant beast shot the black beam of light, he felt that the power of the black beam of light seemed to exceed that of an ordinary king-tier beast. Therefore, he interweaved the dark green fog shield in front of him to test the power of the black beam of light. Judging from the damage done to the dark green fog shield, the power of the black beam of light was comparable to a second metamorphosis king-tier beast. This was a power that surprised him. So far, this was the first time he had encountered a giant beast whose combat power exceeded that of an ordinary king-tier beast. Bang, bang, bang. The black beam of light kept attacking the dark green shield. Unfortunately, the shield formed by Gray's 4 mixed abilities was not easily broken by a second metamorphosis king-tier beast. Screech. After several consecutive attacks, the shield formed by the dark green fog could not be broken. The giant black beast let out a sharp screech, which made Gray's eardrums tingle. Then, a surprising scene appeared in front of Gray. He saw the giant black beast's body leave the ground and float. It actually had the ability to fly. The other party's flying method was obviously different from the bird-type blood fiends and king-level experts. Bird-type blood fiends relied on their wings, while king-level blood fiends relied on the reaction force generated by stepping on the air. However, this giant beast obviously did not use either of these two methods to fly. It floated up as if its body was weightless, as if it was born with the ability to fly. It actually has the ability to fly. Gray was slightly surprised. He put on his black armor and dispersed his dark green shield. Pum! A black beam of light shot towards him. He swung his sword horizontally, instantly dispersing the black beam of light. Then, he quickly flew closer to the black beast, while the black beast continuously shot out black beams of light at him. Whoosh! After destroying several black beams in succession, Gray approached the black behemoth and sized it up at close range. At this moment, several tentacles of the behemoth whipped towards Gray with a strong gust of wind. Poof, poof, poof. Gray slashed his sword several times, and all the tentacles of the black behemoth that were attacking Gray were cut in half. The severed tentacles fell to the ground with a thud. There's no blood. Gray was surprised to find that there was no blood seeping out from the severed tentacles. Moreover, there were no fibers similar to muscles at the severed tentacles. Instead, they were pieced together like bubbles. Gray also noticed that the black tentacles that had fallen to the ground were slowly dissipating, while the severed tentacles of the black behemoth were wriggling slightly and slowly growing back. A third type of creature, Gray was bewildered. Since it could appear in the daytime, the black behemoth was naturally not a specter. Moreover, specters were not black in color and did not have blood. This black behemoth was also not a blood fiend, because blood was the most basic characteristic of a blood fiend. This was a creature that was neither a specter nor a blood fiend. It was a third type of creature apart from specters and blood fiends. This creature was somewhat similar to the fog beasts he had encountered on the floating island, but there were also some differences. Those fog beasts were obviously not living creatures, but puppets made by some means. They did not have spiritual intelligence, but this black behemoth clearly had spiritual intelligence. It was undoubtedly a real creature. Gray even suspected that the fog beasts on the floating island were based on this black behemoth. However, he did not know how such a creature had appeared. Whether it was the books of the Empire or the 1,000 years of history of the Four Kingdoms, there had never been any description of such a creature. Whoosh! Several more giant tentacles attacked Gray. Having observed the characteristics of the black behemoth, Gray did not hold back. He raised his dark green sword and slashed down vertically. Poof! A dark green giant blade appeared, cutting off the tentacles that were whipping at him. Not only that, the dark green giant blade slashed at the black giant beast's body, leaving a huge wound. A small part of the black giant beast's body had been cut open. Gee! With such a huge wound on its body, if it were a blood fiend, it would have been seriously injured or even dead. However, the black behemoth did not seem to be seriously injured. It was very likely that it did not even feel the pain. Its huge mouth was facing Gray, and the black beam of light attacked Gray again. Poof! Another dark green giant blade was slashed out by Gray. The black beam of light dissipated, and another huge and hideous wound was added to the black behemoth's body. Poof, poof, poof. Gray slashed out several times in succession, and the black behemoth's body was cut in half. At this time, the black behemoth finally lost all signs of life. The two halves of its body fell to the ground with a thud, knocking down many lifeless trees. Gray landed and looked at the two halves of the black behemoth's body. He saw that the two halves of the black behemoth's body were slowly disappearing, like mist under sunlight. More than 10 minutes later, the 10-meter-long black behemoth had completely disappeared. Ding! At this time, something fell on a rock, and there was a crisp sound. Gray followed the sound and saw a crystal about the size of a marble. The whole crystal was black, and it looked like a crystal. There were a total of 6 sides, and each side was a regular hexagon. What is this thing? Gray stretched out his hand to pick up the black crystal. He wanted to pick it up and examine it, but when his hand touched the black crystal, he felt a cool feeling enter his body through his hand. He subconsciously retracted his hand and looked at the black crystal in bewilderment. He quickly checked the changes in his body. However, there were no changes in his body, and he did not feel the slightest bit of abnormality. It was as if the cool feeling just now was an illusion. However, he was very sure that it was not an illusion. When his hand touched the black crystal, there was indeed a cool feeling. After a slight hesitation, his hand touched the black crystal again, and another cool feeling entered his body. This time, he did not retract his hand. Instead, he took the opportunity to grab the black crystal and put it in the palm of his hand. He observed the changes that this cool feeling brought to his body after it entered his body. About 10 minutes later, Gray felt that his body seemed to have changed. He put away the black crystal and carefully felt the changes in his body. A moment later, he opened his eyes, and there was a trace of sharp light in his eyes. This thing can help with cultivation. He felt a slight increase in his strength. Although it wasn't much, it did increase a little. Moreover, it only took him a little more than 10 minutes to achieve this. One could imagine how much his strength would increase if he carried this black crystal with him for an entire day. There is no blood, no flesh, and after death, it will leave behind a crystal core that can help with cultivation. Gray felt that the characteristics of this black behemoth were more similar to the characteristics of the fog beasts on the floating island. He felt that the fog beasts on the floating island were made based on this black behemoth. At the same time, he could not help but feel happy. With the assistance of the crystal core of this black fog beast, his strength would increase even faster. Gray took out a piece of gold from his purple ring. Using his metal ability, he controlled the shape of the gold and turned it into a golden bracelet. There was a depression in the center of the bracelet, and the black crystal was embedded in it. It was close to his skin. Traces of cool feeling flowed along his arm and into his body, slowly but continuously increasing his strength. I wonder if there are any more of these black behemoths. If I can find more. After tasting the benefits of this black behemoth's crystal core, Gray began to consciously search for these black behemoths in this black vegetation area. He wanted to find and kill more black blood beasts. After flying for a few kilometers, Gray was about to fly out of the black forest area. At this time, he saw another black behemoth. This was a black beast that looked similar to the one they had just seen. However, it was smaller than the one they had just discovered. It was only 10 meters tall. The black beast stretched out its huge tentacles and walked in the green forest that had not turned black. It spat out black mist from its mouth and then sucked it back in, inhaling and exhaling as if it was breathing. Amidst this engulfment, the surrounding trees quickly turned pitch black. Gray even saw some blood fiends collapsing under the black light, turning black and dying. Why is this black behemoth killing the plants and blood beasts? Feeling that something was strange, Gray did not immediately take action. He hid in the forest and observed this black behemoth. He wanted to know why it was spitting out black fog and killing the plants and blood beasts. One day later, what kind of monster is this? After following the black behemoth for a day, Gray discovered a frightening fact. The black behemoth's strength was increasing rapidly. In just one day, it had swelled from its original 10 meters to 11 meters. The aura on its body had also become stronger. It seemed to be able to absorb the life of the plants and blood beasts to increase its strength. If it is allowed to grow like this, a trace of cold sweat climbed up Gray's forehead. He thought of the terrifying consequences. If the black behemoth could maintain this growth method and speed, it would not be long before it grew to a point where no one would be able to keep it in check. At that time, it would be a terrifying disaster for this world. It would be a disaster for all life, because all life would be its prey. In the end, the entire world would become a barren land without life. By now, Gray had figured out why the earthen bear had left the depths of the night forest. It was obvious that this black behemoth had caused the earthen bear to leave the depths of the night forest. Chapter 592. This kind of creature is too dangerous. Gray's expression was solemn. This kind of creature had the characteristic of devouring plants and animals, as well as the terrifying speed of its growth through this method. To the species in this world, including humans, it was simply a disaster. Even Gray, who was quite confident in the speed of his growth, did not have the thought of competing with this kind of creature. If his growth was considered cheating, then the existence of the other party was like a bug in the program. They were not on the same level. Should I kill it or not? The danger of the black giant beast was obvious. It could be said to be catastrophic. However, when deciding whether to kill the black giant beast or not, Gray could not help but hesitate. The black giant beast was indeed dangerous, but the benefits it brought were also huge. After carrying the black giant beast's crystal core for a day, Gray found that his strength had increased by a small margin. The improvement he obtained in a day was enough to match up to the improvement he had obtained in a few days. However, during this process, he also found that the black giant beast's crystal core was slowly fading, and there were faint cracks on its surface. At most 2 days, it should become completely transparent and shatter. At that time, this black crystal core should lose its effect. In other words, using the black crystal core to assist in cultivation, one black crystal core could only last for 3 days. If he wanted to maintain this speed of growth, he would need to have a large number of black crystal cores. This gave him the idea of rearing this black giant beast in captivity to provide him with a steady stream of crystal cores. However, he also knew that this was an extremely dangerous idea. If he was not careful and allowed the black giant beast to grow to a point where it could not be destroyed, it would bring about an unprecedented disaster. With the growth of this black giant beast, it should be able to grow to a point where I can't deal with it in a week or 2. In the end, Gray did not kill this black giant beast. If he guessed correctly, the crystal core in the black giant beast body should be related to its own strength. The stronger the strength, the larger the crystal core, and the longer the time it could be used. He decided to let this black giant beast grow until its strength grew to a point where he could not deal with it. Then he would kill it. This way, the benefits he would obtain would undoubtedly be greater. There should be more than 2 of these black giant beasts. Look again. A pair of greenish-black wings appeared on his back and flew into the sky. With the black forest as the center, Gray searched. 2, 3, 4. After a few hours, including the one just now, 4 black giant beasts were found by Gray. They were of different sizes. The small one was 10 meters, and a large one was 16 or 17 meters. Judging from the aura, Gray felt that they were at least thrice Metamorphosis King level. Gray decided, there's an even bigger one. Gray's face turned pale. He had heard the sound of the black giant beasts many times. This was the sharpest sound he had ever heard. Even the black behemoth that was suspected to have triple Metamorphosis King-class battle prowess didn't have such an ear-piercing sound. It was obvious that this black behemoth strength was far superior to the triple Metamorphosis King-class black behemoth. Damn it! Don't tell me there's already a black giant beast that's as strong as magic light. Gray knew something was wrong. He quickly flew in the direction of the sound. Whoosh! After flying 2 miles in the direction of the sound, a conspicuous black giant beast appeared in front of Gray. The reason why this black beast was so conspicuous was because it was taller than most of the trees. When it walked in the forest, it was not covered by the trees and could be seen clearly. It's over 20 meters. Staying in the air, Gray's blue eyes showed a dignified look. Based on visual estimation, the height of this giant black beast was definitely over 20 meters. Its tentacles were extremely thick, each of them several meters thick. With a gentle tug, the giant trees that were blocking the giant black beast fell in rows. One could imagine the strength of these giant tentacles. Is it comparable to magic light? The bad premonition in Gray's heart grew stronger. The black giant beast exuded a very strong aura. Gray felt that there was not much difference between it and the aura of the two magic light from the fifth organization. Of course, aura could only be used as a reference. It was impossible to judge the exact strength of a creature by its aura alone. Whoosh! Suddenly, something strange happened. The black giant beast noticed Gray, who was hundreds of meters in the air. Although it had no eyes, its huge mouth was aimed at Gray. A thick black beam of light shot out from its huge mouth, which was large enough to swallow dozens of people. It attacked Gray in extremely fast speed. In an instant, it was close to Gray, leaving him no time to dodge. Gray's expression changed slightly. His body was alloyed, and he activated the black armor. The black armor covered his body, and the dark green greatsword swept towards the black beam of light. Gotcha! The dark green greatsword in Gray's hand dissipated, and the black beam of light hit Gray's body. Bang! The impact passed through the armor and hit Gray. Gray felt a faint pain in his body. He was knocked back dozens of meters in the air before he could stabilize his body. There's actually one that has grown to magic light level. Gray's expression was grim. His eyes were full of seriousness and fear. Even without using blood frenzy, the black armor and his alloyed defense had definitely surpassed the average magic light. It was enough to make him feel a faint pain. Although he was not injured, the destructive power of the black beam had probably reached magic light's level. Whoosh! Seeing that Gray was still alive and had not fallen from the sky, another black beam of light attacked Gray. The power of magic light made this beam of light extremely fast. It looked like he would not be able to dodge it again. Gotcha! Using blood frenzy, Gray's body quickly expanded under the black armor. He became more than 2 meters tall. The dark green sword in his hand shone brightly as it met the black beam of light. Bang! The black beam of light shattered. The force from the sword made Gray certain that the black giant beast's combat power was comparable to magic light. I have to kill it immediately. This was a magic light-ranked black behemoth. Most frightening of all, this black behemoth had the ability to devour life, to grow rapidly. One could easily imagine that if they did not kill this black behemoth today, no one would be able to contend against it in the future. Whoosh! Whoosh! Dark green mist poured out from the sword and turned into a dark green whirlpool that attacked the black giant beast. He himself quickly rushed towards the black giant beast. Boom! Before the dark green whirlpool could hit the black giant beast, the black beam of light from the black giant beast's mouth destroyed the dark green whirlpool. At the same time, a black beam of light attacked the approaching Gray. Bang! Without dodging, Gray relied on the increased defense after frenzy to withstand the attack. His body in the air was not pushed back at all. He continued to rush towards the black giant beast. At the same time, a dark green giant blade slashed at the black giant beast. Boom! The dark green giant blade was blocked by the black beam of light. Another black beam of light attacked Gray. Bang! 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 Gray endured one black beam after another. As he attacked, he approached the black giant beast. As the distance closed, the black giant beast became more and more difficult to block Gray's attacks. Pooh! A dark green giant blade was not blocked by the black beam of light. It slashed the black giant beast's body and left a deep wound. However, compared to its huge body, this wound was obviously not serious. Screech! After being injured by Gray's attack, the black behemoth let out a sharp cry, piercing Gray's ears and causing him to feel a faint pain. Then, Gray saw the black behemoth use more than 10 tentacles to quickly run, and in an instant, it had already pulled away from him. As a magic light level existence, the black giant beast's speed was not slow. The reason why it did not dodge and pull away from Gray at first was probably because it felt that Gray was not a threat to it. After Gray injured it, it realized that Gray was a threat to it, so it quickly pulled away from Gray. In the end, it's still not enough. Looking at the black giant beast pulling away from him in an instant, Gray shook his head slightly. If he did not take into account other means, there was absolutely no way he could kill Magic Light. Although his powerful defense allowed him to remain in an invincible position until the power of blood was exhausted, it wasn't much help in killing Demon Shine. Bang! Using the purple ring, Blair Blaze appeared vertically. After landing heavily, his body was not injured at all. He turned into an afterimage and quickly chased after the black giant beast. Whoosh! The black giant beast noticed the rapidly approaching Blair Blaze and felt threatened. It temporarily gave up on Gray and attacked Blair Blaze with a black beam of light. Whoosh! Just as the black beam of light was about to hit Blair Blaze's body suddenly flashed, dodging the black beam of light and continuing to rush toward the black giant beast. The black beam of light plowed a long gully in the night forest, and a huge hole directly appeared in a mountain under this black beam of light. As a speed-type magic light, Blair Blaze's speed was at the top of the first level of Magic Light, which was enough to dodge Magic Light's attacks. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. One after another, black beams of light attacked Blair Blaze, but Blair Blaze dodged them all with his speed. It was not until Blair Blaze was within 100 meters of the black giant beast that dodging became difficult. Whoosh! A black beam of light hit, and Blair Blaze, who was too close, finally had no time to dodge. Bang! The black beam of light hit Blair Blaze's body, but quickly dissipated. The surrounding ground was full of traces of destruction, but Blair Blaze was not injured at all. He was not even repelled. Blair Blaze was a Magic Light warrior when he was alive, so his defense was naturally at the Magic Light level. When Gray used alloy transformation on him, his defense was terrifyingly strong, to the extent that Gray could not judge it. Gray estimated that even if he wore the black armor and used alloy transformation and berserk, his defense might not be as good as Blair Blaze's current defense. After all, Blair Blaze's foundation was too high, and his starting point was Magic Light. Chapter 593. Whoosh! Blair Blaze finally approached the black behemoth after taking the hit head-on. The golden spear in his hand was like a golden snake tearing at the black behemoth. Bang! A huge tentacle several meters thick lashed out and blocked the golden spear. Although the golden spear pierced a huge hole in the huge tentacle, it was only a light injury compared to the huge body of the black behemoth. Whoosh! Seeing that his attack was ineffective, Blair Blaze's figure flashed and quickly circled to the other side of the black behemoth. He stabbed his spear at the black behemoth's body, but at this moment, another giant tentacle came and blocked the spear. Bang, bang, bang. Blair Blaze circled the black behemoth and stabbed several times from different directions, but they were all blocked by the black behemoth's tentacles. The black behemoth had no eyes, but its vision was extremely terrifying. It was as if it had a 360-degree view without any blind spots. It could detect and block Blair Blaze's attacks from any direction. Whoosh! At this moment, a dark green giant blade slashed down from the sky, cutting through the forest and slashing towards the black behemoth with the power to split a mountain in half. While the black behemoth's attention was distracted by Blair Blaze, Gray approached the black behemoth and launched an attack. Puff! Sensing the danger, the black behemoth's body dodged, but at such a close distance, it couldn't dodge. The dark green giant blade slashed on a tentacle, and a powerful destructive force erupted on the tentacle. More than half of the tentacle was cut off, and the entire tentacle was almost cut off. Puff! Not only that, but the black behemoth, which was dodging the dark green giant blade, finally had no time to stop Blair Blaze with its tentacles. Blair Blaze's spear stabbed the black behemoth's body for the first time. However, after all, it was no longer at the Magic Light level. Even if it stabbed the black behemoth's body, it only left a minor injury. Although its body was injured, the black behemoth was still angry. A huge black beam attacked Gray, and a huge tentacle whipped towards Blairblaze. Bang! Gray and Blairblaze relied on their strong defense to block the black beam and tentacles, and launched another attack. Puff! 2 more wounds, one big and one small, appeared on the black behemoth's body. The big one was naturally caused by Gray's dark green giant blade, and the small one by Blairblaze. Puff! With its body injured again, the black behemoth became even more violent, and Gray and Blairblaze continuously, but they were all resisted by Gray and Blairblaze with their strong defense. Pata! Under the joint attack of Gray and Blairblaze, wounds appeared on the black behemoth's body and tentacles. A thick tentacle that was riddled with scars was finally cut off. It fell to the ground and smashed into many trees. The black behemoth voice was filled with anger and fear. It felt a strong threat from Gray and Blairblaze. Then, it used all of its tentacles to quickly run away. It was clearly planning to escape. Bang! Unfortunately, it was not as fast as Blairblaze. Blairblaze caught up with it in a flash, blocking its way. Gray took the opportunity to catch up. Puff! 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 Under Gray's and Blairblaze's siege, the black behemoth's body was once again covered in wounds. If this continued, the black behemoth would definitely die. However, at this moment, Gray's face showed a trace of regret. He then retreated with Blairblaze without hesitation. As expected, it's still not enough. Activating the Frenzy's blood skill consumed a terrifying amount of his blood force. After fighting for a short while, his blood force was almost depleted. Although the black behemoth had many wounds, they were not serious. If he wanted to kill it, he would not be able to do it in a short time. He estimated that even if he consumed a bottle of high-grade recovery potion to recover his blood force, it would still be very difficult to kill the black behemoth. Therefore, he decisively retreated. To the Kernim, wanting to kill Demonshine was far too difficult. Patter, patter. Without Gray and Blairblaze blocking it, the black behemoth, which was already afraid of Gray and Blairblaze, used its 10 tentacles to quickly run. Keep up. Gray let Blairblaze carry him. Relying on Blairblaze's magic light level speed, he followed the black behemoth from a distance to avoid losing track of it. He could not let the black behemoth escape his line of sight and lose track of it. Otherwise, it would be an unprecedented disaster. Moreover, although he could not kill the black behemoth now, it did not mean that he could not kill it after nightfall. One had to know that he now had a trump card in his hand. It was a trump card that could kill blood fiends or creatures that were not of the fire or lightning attribute. Rumble. The black behemoth ran forward with great momentum, immediately triggering a beast tide. Fortunately, Gray intentionally drove the beast tide into the depths of the night forest and did not affect the human territory outside the forest. After running for more than an hour, the black behemoth, which did not sense any danger, stopped. Then, it stood in the forest and breathed in black mist. As the black mist breathed in and out, the wounds on its body, which were already healing, and even the broken tentacles, recovered even faster. In just a short while, the wounds on its body had already healed. Even the broken tentacles had already grown back. Gray hid in the forest and watched all of this. While he was surprised that the black behemoth actually had a method similar to reverse nurturing, he secretly waited for night to fall. As night fell, the purple moon hung high in the sky, sprinkling a purple brilliance. It was like a layer of purple gauze that enveloped the night forest. The blood fiends that roamed during the day went into hiding, while the blood fiends that roamed at night were active. Occasionally, there would be a few bestial roars that sounded like the whispers of ghosts to one's ears, making one's hair stand on end. Huff, huff, huff. Under the purple moonlight, a 20-meter-long black behemoth breathed in and out black mist. A large number of the originally crisp plants in the surrounding area quickly turned pitch black and lost their lives. Occasionally, there were nocturnal blood fiends that went out to hunt. Similarly, they were unable to avoid the black mist and fell to the ground dead. Even in the middle of the night, the black behemoth had no intention of stopping to rest. It continued to breathe in and out black mist, absorbing the life of plants and animals to increase its strength. The black behemoth was like a gluttonous monster that could never be full. It did not stop for a moment, regardless of whether it was day or night. We can begin. Seeing that the black behemoth's strength had recovered and was increasing in strength, Gray, who had been waiting anxiously, pulled out the dagger tied to his left leg and began to move. He stabbed the dagger into the ground. The remaining spirit, which was the spirit formed from Blair Blaze's soul, moved to the ground without emitting any light or alarming the black behemoth. Then, it quickly moved through the ground toward the black behemoth. When it reached the black behemoth, it quickly scuttled out of the ground and crashed into the black behemoth, preparing to attach itself to the black behemoth. Whoosh! At this moment, something unexpected happened. The black behemoth, which had been breathing in and out black mist, suddenly dodged to the side, avoiding the spirit. The stronger the creature, the sharper its spiritual sense. The moment the spirit rushed out of the ground, the black behemoth's spiritual sense must have sensed danger, which was why it dodged to the side. Whoosh! Floating in the air, the spirit chased after the black behemoth. As the black behemoth's black light attacked the spirit, it quickly retreated and distanced itself from the spirit. Pooh! The black light passed through the spirit as expected. There was not a single wound on the spirit's body, but the spirit was unable to close the distance between it and the black behemoth. In terms of speed, it did not have an advantage over the black behemoth. Although it was a spirit formed from Blair Blaze's soul, it was still a spirit. It did not inherit the body and did not have the speed that Blair Blaze had when he was alive. The speed it possessed was only the normal speed of a magic light level spirit. This speed obviously did not have any advantage against the black behemoth, which was also a magic light level spirit. Just the spirit alone won't do. Gray, who had been watching from afar, immediately judged that if it was just the spirit, it would be difficult to kill the black behemoth. He quickly released Blair Blaze and used the alloy transformation ability on him. Whoosh! His body turned into a silver-gray Blair Blaze and rushed towards the black behemoth at full speed. Some of the trees that blocked his path were directly broken by him. He quickly approached the black behemoth. The black behemoth had clearly discovered the approaching Brel blazing. It probably recalled its encounter during the day and immediately turned horrified. It chose a direction that was different from Brel blazing and the specter. Using more than 10 tentacles, it quickly fled. Dong, dong, dong. In the night forest, because of the black behemoth's escape, another beast tide was triggered. The originally quiet night forest was filled with beast roars and was as lively as the day. Pooh! However, Blair Blaze's speed was obviously faster than the black behemoth. In just a few flashes, he had already caught up with the black behemoth and blocked its path. He stabbed the black behemoth with his spear and pierced a hole in its body. Gee, the black behemoth's path was blocked by Blair Blaze, and the spirit behind it was even closer. The black behemoth turned and fled in another direction in horror. Pooh! The black behemoth only ran forward a little more than 10 meters before Blair Blaze's figure blocked its path again. The black behemoth's spear pierced its body again, blocking its path. The black behemoth was even more panicked and fled in another direction in panic. At this moment, the spirit had already caught up. Its white, misty body crashed into the black behemoth and penetrated it. Chapter 594. Pa! 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 The black beast paused for a moment as the spirit drilled into its body, and then it went berserk. It frantically twitched its tentacles and shot out rays of black light. Huge cracks appeared on the ground as the tentacles lashed out. In the night, it looked like the entrance to the abyss of hell. Under the black light, large swathes of trees disappeared in an instant. Mountains in the distance were pierced through one after another and finally collapsed. The destruction caused by a magic light beast going berserk was terrifying. This was a doomsday-like scene. Mountains collapsed and the ground cracked. Everything within a few miles was affected. Creatures that couldn't escape in time died in large numbers, and the living creatures, Whether they were day creatures or nocturnal creatures, all fled in fear. Gray could no longer watch the battle from the sidelines. His body was alloyed, and he put on his black armor. He flew into the sky to avoid the attacks that occasionally hit him. The reason why the giant black beast was so violent was obviously because after the spirit possessed it, it was continuously causing damage to its soul. It felt the pain and the threat of death from its soul, and it was this pain and the threat of death that made it go berserk. The power of the specter was indeed the nemesis of non-fire and lightning-type blood fiends and creatures. Once possessed by the specter, the blood fiends and creatures would be helpless unless the possessed creature's soul was extremely powerful, to the extent that the specter's soul attack was ineffective against it. Of course, if the possessed creature was a magic light warrior, he would have time to take out a lightning or fire magic weapon from a space item. As long as he used the lightning or fire magic weapon on himself, he would be able to damage and expel the spirit. Although he would be injured, it was better than being killed by the spirit. This was also the reason why Gray didn't use the spirit against the fifth power, the magic light warrior. Not only would he not be able to kill the opponent, but he might also kill the spirit. This wasn't worth it. A magic light level spirit was very rare, at least in this world. Rumble. The huge commotion lasted for more than 10 minutes, and the black giant beast's struggles gradually became weaker. Its huge tentacles went limp, and like a pile of mud, it laid on the scarred ground. The ferocious mouth that could swallow dozens of people opened and closed, but it didn't seem to be afraid. Instead, it was like a fish in weak water. Its huge mouth opened and closed dryly, trying to get oxygen. Another few minutes passed, and the black beast stopped struggling completely. Even its huge mouth had stopped moving. Gray descended from the sky and landed beside the black beast's body. Under the moonlight, the black beast's body was slowly dissipating like smoke. It was obviously dead. It's dead. Gray let out a sigh of relief. He was very worried that he couldn't kill the black behemoth during the day. He was worried that Spectre couldn't kill the black behemoth, or that the opponent's ability could restrain Spectre. If that was the case, it would be an unprecedented disaster. Although the fifth power had the ability to kill the black beast, Gray was sure that the fifth power wouldn't help. After all, this world was just a temporary foothold for them. They would leave soon and wouldn't care about the life and death of this world. Fortunately, this didn't happen. The spirit perfectly restrained the black beast and killed it. After a full half an hour, the black beast's gigantic body finally disappeared completely, and a black crystal appeared in Gray's hand, each side of which had a square shape. Its size was about twice the size of the black crystal that Gray first obtained. Obviously, Gray's previous guess was right. The stronger the black beast was, the bigger the black crystal core would be after killing it, and the longer it could be used. This black beast is definitely not a creature of this world. Gray put away the black crystal core. He was very sure that this black beast definitely didn't belong to this world. If it did, with its growth speed, this world would have been destroyed long ago. Did it break the world barrier and come in? But why is it here? With the strength of the magic light grayed black beast, it had the ability to break the world barrier and come to this world. The other black beasts must have followed this magic light grayed black beast into this world. However, there was one thing that Gray couldn't figure out. Even if the black beast broke the world barrier and came to this world, it should have appeared at the edge of the world and not in the middle of the dark forest. Could it be? Looking up at the purple moon in the sky, Gray had a guess in his mind. According to his estimation, the shape of the world barrier should be a hemispherical shape. Not only the edge of the world, even the sky above his head should have a world barrier. It was just that the sky was too high. Even a king couldn't fly that high, so he couldn't see it. The place where the world was connected to other worlds might not necessarily appear at the edge of the world. It could also appear at one of the world barriers above his head. It might not necessarily be another world. Gray's eyes shone with a sharp light. One of the black beast's abilities was that they could fly without wings. Gray was very sure that this method of flight didn't require the use of air. He couldn't help but wonder if the black beast came from outer space. Based on the other party's flying method, even in the airless universe, it should still have the ability to move. Then, was there a possibility that there was life in the universe? It was just that the structure of the life in the universe was different from other creatures, just like the black behemoth. Their unique body structure gave them the ability to move and survive in outer space, allowing them to roam the vast expanse of outer space. I wonder how the other four black beasts are doing. Were they scared away? Gray didn't stay for long. That night, he set out to the area where the black beasts were first discovered. Previously, when he fought the magic light grayed black beast there, he was a little worried that the other black beasts would be scared away and flee to other places. Although these black beasts hadn't grown to the point where he couldn't deal with them, if he didn't find them for a long time, with their speed of growth, they would become a big problem sooner or later. After more than an hour, Gray arrived at the area where the black beasts were first discovered. He checked the locations of the four black beasts one by one. As he searched, his face became serious. They really aren't here anymore. The four black beasts were no longer in their original positions. There were no longer any black beasts in this area. Looks like I need to gather more people. Four, or perhaps more, black beasts had already scattered. He didn't know where they went. If he was alone, it would be very tiring to find these black beasts, and he might even miss them. Thus, he needed to gather a group of people to help him search. After leaving a teleportation mark at the scene, Gray teleported back to Fergus Castle. He then went to the three strongholds of the Inferno Fong and the Nahum family. He urgently gathered all the desolate level forces. It wasn't that he didn't want to gather more people, but the depths of the night forest were too dangerous. Without desolate level strength, it would be very difficult to protect oneself in such a forest. When the time came, not to mention searching, even self-preservation would be a problem. These are black beasts with tentacles and no legs. Wherever they appear, there will be blackened trees. Find them and contact me, but don't alarm them. Gray instructed the 6 desolate level beasts standing in front of him. Unknowingly, his forces had grown. The forces formed by the 7 of them were far stronger than any Duke's family. Unfortunately, this was the limit of what he could control at the moment. The number of people with the ability to revive had been completely filled. He had already sent people to search for the king-level blood beasts, the Phantom King Fox and the Phantom King Ape, which had the ability to control corpses. Unfortunately, they had not been found. He didn't know if such blood beasts existed in this world. A few days later, all the black beasts that had fled to other places due to fear were found one by one. Moreover, the black beasts that were found weren't the expected 4, but 5. Clearly, there was one black beast that Gray hadn't discovered and had almost missed. I'll kill it when it breaks through to magic light. Hidden in the dense branches of a tree, Gray muttered to himself as he looked at the black beast that was 18 meters tall and suspected to be a thrice-transformed king-level beast. The phantom ability could perfectly counter the black beasts. Even magic light grade black beasts had the ability to kill them. Therefore, he decided to let the black beast grow until it reached the magic light grade. He would kill it when it reached the magic light grade. This way, he would be able to obtain a larger black crystal core. Of course, the magic light grade was already the limit of what he could do. If he allowed it to continue growing, it might very well be out of his control. Does this count as a farmer? After inspecting every single one of the black behemoths, Gray felt like he had become a farmer. The royal family was a large noble family, and they all had their own farming industry. They would breed blood beasts that could reproduce quickly and provide them with meat. Gray was the same. However, the beasts that he bred were all at least king level. They were extremely dangerous and unimaginable to most factions. These black beasts were extremely destructive to the ecosystem. Normally, they should be killed as soon as they were discovered. However, they were in a critical period, and he urgently needed to increase his strength to deal with the 5th faction. He had no choice but to deal with them in this critical period. Gray did not stay in a night forest for long. He left 5 people behind to monitor the 5 black beasts while he brought the rest back to Fergus Castle. From now on, he only needed to wait for the black beasts to reach the magic light grade before killing them. He would not stay in a night forest for the rest of the time. He had people watching over them and reporting to him at any time. He He was not worried that these black beasts would grow out of his control. Chapter 595. A month later, after the 5 black giant beasts reached the level of magic light, Gray killed them one by one and turned them into black crystal cores. After testing, the crystal cores provided by the magic light level black giant beasts were enough for him to use for about a month. Within this month, his strength would increase by several folds. This kind of increase was not in comparison to the increase in the cultivation of blood arts, but in comparison to the increase in his second metamorphosis in addition to the increase in the cultivation of blood arts. The speed of growth was too fast, making him very worried about whether there would be any side effects. Fortunately, such things did not happen. The black crystal cores did not have any side effects on the growth of strength, just like the fog left behind by the death of the fog beasts on the floating islands. However, the fog left behind by the death of the fog beasts could be absorbed very quickly and was better than the black crystal cores. It was a pity that such islands had already disappeared, and he did not know if they would appear again. Why is it that when others touch the black crystal cores, they do not feel anything and their strength does not increase? Tossing a black crystal core in his hand, Gray felt a trace of surprise in his heart. The black crystal core in his hand was from the body of the last black giant beast he killed. One of the desolate blood warriors under him picked it up and handed it to him. However, he found out from the warrior that when he held the black crystal core in his hand, there was no cooling aura transmitted into his body, and his strength did not increase. Could it be? With some guesses in mind, Gray used his mind connection and quickly found the person closest to him at this moment. He directly ordered in his mind, "Bart, come to my side." Not long after, a man appeared in front of Gray. This was a man who looked to be in his 50s and had brown hair. Seeing Gray, the man respectfully bowed. "Lord Gray." After slightly nodding, Gray threw the black crystal core in his hand to the man and asked, "Do you have any strange feelings?" After receiving the black crystal core, although Bart was puzzled as to why Gray would ask such a question, he still answered respectfully, "Lord Gray, I do not have any strange feelings. Keep the black crystal core close to your body and then cultivate blood arts." Gray did not explain further and continued to instruct. Although he was filled with doubts, Bart still followed Gray's instructions and started cultivating his blood techniques. Following the activation of his opponent's blood technique, a gigantic crocodile-shaped blood fiend appeared in front of Gray. The crocodile-type blood beast was more than 10 meters long. Its entire body was brown, and there were many spikes on the surface of its body. Its huge eyes emitted a yellow, ominous glint. This was a king beast rock king crocodile, an earth-type king beast. Stop. Gray did not let the other party cultivate for a long time. As soon as the king-level blood beast phantom appeared, he immediately stopped the other party and asked, "How is it? How do you feel?" Bart, who had stopped cultivating, looked at the black crystal core in astonishment. When he heard Gray's question, he hurriedly replied, "Lord Gray, I feel a cool sensation passing through the black crystal core and into my body." As expected, Gray thought to himself, the test just now had thoroughly verified his conjecture. When he realized that the black crystal core in his hand was different from the others, he thought of the second metamorphosis. He guessed that the second metamorphosis might have given him the ability to absorb the black crystal core. The fact that Bart could not absorb the black crystal core in his hand, but he was able to absorb it during cultivation, proved this point. Because he was in the second metamorphosis, his strength was increasing every minute and every second. During this process, he was probably undergoing some kind of exchange with the outside world and absorbing something from the outside world. That was why he was able to absorb the black crystal core. The others did not undergo the second metamorphosis, so their bodies did not undergo such an exchange. They did not absorb anything from the outside world, so they were unable to absorb the black crystal core. When they cultivated, their bodies also underwent an exchange with the outside world, so they had the ability to absorb the black crystal core. In the end, Gray did not give the black crystal core to Bart. Instead, he waved his hand and asked him to leave. He did not even have enough of such a black crystal core, so how could he give it to someone else? I should be able to consume the blood of a blood fiend for one metamorphosis. What blood fiend should I consume? One black crystal core had saved Gray several months of time. Gray's cultivation progress had already reached the third cultivation method of the second round of the king-level blood arts. According to his estimation, he should be able to consume the blood of a blood fiend for one metamorphosis. Currently, he had 5 types of demonic light-grade blood fiends that he could consume. They were the demonic wind fox, the water-loathed demonic beast, the 6-headed snake, the demonic ice-fire ape, and the emerald dragon. He needed to choose one of these 5 types of demonic light-grade blood fiends to transform. Sometimes, having too many choices was a problem. If there was only one type of blood fiend, there would be no need to choose. However, there were 5 types of blood fiends, so he had to carefully choose the type that was most suitable for his current situation. He had to choose the type of blood fiend that was most suitable for his current situation. After thinking for a while, Gray had a rough idea of what to do. He had 2 choices. The first choice was considered a safer choice. The 4 mixed abilities that he had mastered were a mixture of ice, fire, wind, and poison. Among these 4 abilities, the poison type was a magic light bloodline, while the wind, fire, and ice types were only king-level bloodlines. Now that he had reached the king level, it was imperative that he raise the level of these 3 bloodlines. Thus, he decided to consume the blood of either the wind demon fox or the ice-fire demon ape for the metamorphosis. This choice was safe. After all, there was nothing wrong with consuming the blood of these 2 types of blood fiends for the metamorphosis. Of course, there were obvious disadvantages as well. Consuming one of these 2 types of blood fiends for the metamorphosis would not increase his current strength. After all, it was an existing type and would not trigger a mutation. The second choice was more risky. It was to ignore the wind demon fox and the ice-fire demon ape and consume the blood of a type of blood fiend that he had never possessed before. This situation could easily trigger a mutation in his bloodline, giving him a stronger ability and increasing his strength. Of course, there were obvious disadvantages as well. This was a risk and might not necessarily give him a stronger ability. Both choices had their advantages and disadvantages. Now it was up to Gray to choose. Rumble. Gray did not have time to make a choice. Suddenly, there was a strange movement. A violent sound rang out as the ground shook violently. The expensive crystal vases and various decorations in the house fell to the ground with a crackling sound and were smashed into pieces. The house creaked as if it could not bear the heavy burden, as if it would collapse in the next moment. Gray dashed out of the house and flew into the air to take a look. It wasn't just his wooden house that was affected. The nearby Fergus Castle, and even places further away, were all shaking violently. He could even see the smoke and dust rising from the collapse of some places. The world was like a piece of paper, and at this moment, this piece of paper was being shaken by an unknown force. Earthquake. Gray was surprised. Even a powerhouse on the level of Demon Shine wouldn't be able to cause such a large-scale shaking. If so, then the only possibility was that this was an earthquake. My lord, the movement should be coming from the Red Leaf Forest. A figure stepped through the air towards Gray. It was King Stage Barnet Naeem, the Red Leaf Forest. After receiving Barnet Naeem's hint, Gray looked in the direction of the Red Leaf Forest. His pupils suddenly shrank. At this moment, in the direction of the Red Leaf Forest, a huge white beam of light shot up into the sky, piercing through the clouds and spreading upwards as if it had already pierced through the sky. It was like a huge pillar standing there, emitting a dazzling light. It was as dazzling as the sun, competing with the sun in the sky, as if it wanted to compete with the sun in the sky. The Red Leaf Forest? Could it be that the temple in the middle of the Red Leaf Forest has caused this huge change? Gray's expression changed slightly. If there was anything special about the Red Leaf Forest, it would naturally be the temple that would only open at a certain time every year. The current change made him suspect that it had something to do with the temple. Protect the Fergus family. After instructing Barnet Naeem, Gray used spatial teleportation. His figure disappeared in the air, and when he reappeared, he was in the barren land where he had discovered the temple in the dark forest. The temple really did appear. In front of him, a huge and majestic temple appeared, emitting a misty white light. Its surface was covered with many golden lines. At the top of the altar in the center of the temple, a dazzling beam of light pierced the sky. It was the dazzling beam of light that he had just seen. This was the palace he had visited before. However, it was not the first day after the new year, nor was it nighttime. Yet, this palace had appeared out of nowhere. Gray already had a premonition in his heart. He ran towards the temple and entered without encountering any obstacles. He quickly ran to the altar in the center, stepped on the altar stairs, and climbed up. Now that he had reached the king level, he had the ability to climb the altar. After spending a few minutes, he finally reached the altar and saw the dazzling white light beam's true appearance. This white light beam was emitted by the transparent barrier that had enveloped the unknown magic weapon when he had first discovered it. However, it was no longer transparent, but emitted a dazzling white light. In this white light, Gray could clearly see the shape of a golden sword. It was the unknown magic weapon. Could it be that the opportunity that the fifth organization has been waiting for is now? Seeing this sword, Gray could not help but breathe heavily. He could not help but walk towards the white light beam. This weapon was definitely above the level of a gold weapon. If he could get his hands on this weapon, he should have the strength to resist the fifth organization. Chapter 596. Looking at it from a close distance, Gray felt that this magic weapon of unknown level was extraordinary. It was golden in color and had an innate sense of holiness. It was like the royal family of swords, possessing the aura of a king that could make other swords submit to it. As for the giant beasts in the handle division, they were of unknown species and level. Their eyes were overflowing with murderous intent that could shake a person's soul. Vaguely, Gray could see that on the scorched earth, the corpses of giant beasts were piled up into a mountain. And at the top of this mountain, a giant beast was stepping on these corpses, roaring to the heavens and emitting a monstrous aura. A sword was a lethal weapon. Even if it was golden in color and had the aura of a king, it was still a sword. After all, it was born to kill. Once it showed its ferocious aura, there would be corpses everywhere. Logically speaking, the fifth force should know when the palace will appear. Why isn't there anyone from the fifth force? Gray had doubts in his heart, but he couldn't care less. He activated his blood skill berserk and became more than 2 meters tall. He pulled out the sword at his waist and let the sword be surrounded by green mist. His eyes locked onto the light pillar. Boom! An explosion rang out as countless rays of light shattered. The pillar of light that had been protecting the sword exploded. Fragments of light shot out in all directions, slamming into Gray's body with terrifying power. Gray's clothes were torn apart, and sparks burst out from his body as he was sent flying. He flew out of the altar and was about to fall from a height of 100 meters. Fortunately, at the critical moment, a pair of greenish-black wings appeared on his back. The wings flapped and stabilized his body in the air. What's going on? Gray was confused. The light pillar didn't explode because of him. Just as he was about to slash down, the light pillar suddenly exploded without any warning. He was also sent flying by the fragments. He turned his gaze to the altar, only to see the pillar of light vanishing. The golden longsword quietly floated in the air, emitting a golden glow. Without the pillar of light blocking it, the longsword looked even more beautiful, mesmerizing those who saw it. Whoosh! Although he didn't know why the pillar of light suddenly exploded, Gray still quickly rushed toward the golden longsword and reached out to grab the hilt of the golden longsword. Whoosh! Just as his hand was about to grab the golden longsword, something strange happened again. The floating golden longsword actually moved on its own, turning into a streak of golden light and shooting off in a direction. It was so fast that it was unknown how many times faster than the magic light. Gray could only see a streak of golden light flash by, leaving behind a golden shadow in the air. The sword's real body, however, had already fled countless kilometers away. This Gray was stunned as he stared in the direction the sword left. The sword actually ran on its own, and its speed was so fast that it was several times faster than the magic light. After a while, Gray came back to his senses and frowned as he stared in the direction the sword had left. This is the direction of the Flame Kingdom. If his guess was correct, there should have been a palace in the former Inferno Kingdom, and it should have been at the center of the planar origin formation, the core of the planar origin formation. Is this the reason why the fifth faction didn't appear here? The doubts in his heart were explained at this moment. The reason why the fifth faction didn't appear here was because they knew the sword would fly away and head toward the center of the origin formation. After teleporting, Gray rushed toward the Flame Kingdom. After teleporting several times, Gray appeared in a desert. Because he was worried about the fifth faction and because he had thoughts about the unknown Gray to the magic weapon, Gray had taken the time to investigate 3 other places in the past few months and left behind spatial coordinates in these 3 places. The place he appeared in now was a desert near the center of the origin formation in the Flame Kingdom. The desert here was different from normal deserts. The sand was red, as if it had been soaked in blood, so it was called the Red Desert. After arriving here, Gray easily found his target. In the distance, a white beam of light shot into the sky, as if it had pierced through the dome of heaven. It was difficult not to discover it. He stealthily moved in that direction. After walking for a few kilometers, a building emitting a white light could be clearly seen. The architectural style was very similar to the building in the Red Leaves Forest. It was rough, bold, and imposing. After finding the entrance to the building, Gray stealthily moved in. This was a palace that was even larger than the one in the Red Leaves Forest. Its area should be several times larger than the one in the Red Leaves Forest. In the entire palace, there were several streets that led straight to the center of the palace. In the center of the palace was where the white beam of light was located. Guessing that the fifth faction was very likely to be here, Gray stealthily moved toward the white beam of light. Finally, he hid in a 3-story house that was relatively close to the white beam of light. Like the building in the Red Leaves Forest, this was a very empty stone house. Except for the house itself, there was nothing else. Obviously, the people who lived here were very calm when they evacuated and took everything away. On the 3rd floor, Gray found a window facing the direction of the beam of light. He approached the window and quietly looked in the direction of the beam of light. The people of the fifth faction are really here. The altar in this building was not as tall as the one in the Red Leaves Forest. It was only about 10 meters high, but in contrast, it was extremely large, with an area of 1,000 square meters. On the altar, Gray saw 4 very conspicuous figures. They were the 4 people of the fifth faction. They were really here. The 4 people stood on the altar in a certain position. In the center of them, a huge white beam of light shot into the sky. It was the beam of light that Gray had seen from afar. Within the white beam of light, Gray saw 4 golden lights, which represented 4 weapons. The weapons from the Jewel Kingdom and the Scarlet Kingdom should have also flown here. They're all sword-type weapons? No, they're all the same. Seeing the 4 weapons in the white beam of light, Gray's face flashed with doubt. The 4 weapons were all sword-type weapons, and the most important thing was that their appearance was exactly the same. Whether it was the length or the external characteristics, they were all exactly the same. One of the weapons was in the center, while the other 3 weapons floated in a triangle around it. 3 golden lights were connected from the 3 weapons to the weapon in the center. What's going on? Gray was full of doubts. There were actually 4 identical weapons, and the 4 weapons were connected to each other in a strange way. He couldn't figure it out. According to the murals, the sword-shaped weapon should have been once possessed by an extremely powerful existence. In the end, it was broken in a battle, and it should be impossible for there to be more than one such weapon. Whoosh! Suddenly, the only woman among the 4 people of the fifth faction, Meryl, turned around and looked sharply in Gray's direction. Then, in front of her, a golden blade without a handle floated up and turned into a golden light, slashing toward the building where Gray was. I've been discovered. Gray's expression changed slightly. It was obvious that he had been discovered. What made him even more shocked was that the woman's golden blade was extremely powerful. It was as if a golden sun had crashed into him. Its power was very likely to have surpassed the thrice metamorphosis king tier and reached the level of magic light. Although he already knew that the remaining 2 people of the 5th faction would quickly recover their magic light state, he could not help but be shocked when he saw them display the combat strength of magic light. For magic light was definitely not something he could contend against. Boom! The 3-story building, and even a large area of buildings behind it were blown to pieces. Gray's figure flew backwards, and a pair of greenish-black wings appeared on his back. After tumbling a few times in the air, he stabilized his body. He didn't use his berserk state. This was because if his goal was only to forcefully withstand Demon Shine's attacks, then metallizing his body in addition to his black armor would be more than enough. This was the conclusion he had drawn from his battle with the Black Beast that had a combat strength comparable to Demon Shine. Swoosh! 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 The 4 people of the 5th faction who were originally on the altar quickly flashed and appeared on the roofs of 4 buildings not far away from Gray. They vaguely surrounded Gray. The 4 of them looked at Gray unkindly. Their leader, Derek, asked coldly, "Sir Gray, what do you mean by this?" "This is the territory of the Purple Moon Kingdom. Since I've discovered something unusual, I naturally have to come and investigate," Gray said calmly. Although he was surrounded by the 4 of them, he did not feel much pressure. Although he was no match for the 4 of them, he had no problem protecting himself. With his current defense, even if he did not use Berserk, the 4 of them would not be able to do anything to him. Moreover, he had a spatial teleportation item, so he could easily escape. Moreover, this place did indeed belong to the Purple Moon Kingdom. After the Flame Kingdom was divided, this place happened to belong to the Purple Moon Kingdom. This is our target. Once we obtain it, we will leave this world. Sir Gray, please return. Otherwise, it will easily cause a misunderstanding. I believe you don't want such a misunderstanding to happen, Derek said coldly. With the 4 of you here, I can't do anything. Why are you in such a hurry to chase me away? Are you hiding something from us? Gray glanced at Derek and probed. Sir Gray, you must be joking. We're not hiding anything. It's just that what we're about to tell you involves the secret of our faction, so it's inconvenient for outsiders to see. Meryl smiled charmingly. She had a smile on her face, but her eyes remained cold. Is that really the case? Gray narrowed his eyes and looked at her. Of course, I'm sure you've seen our sincerity. We didn't attack the Purple Moon Kingdom or the Jewel Kingdom. What else are you worried about? Meryl smiled, but in the eyes of the suspicious Gray, it seemed fake no matter how he looked at it. Then, I'll take my leave. Gray still wanted to say something, but suddenly his heart skipped a beat. He used spatial teleportation and disappeared. Just a moment ago, someone had contacted him urgently. Chapter 597. Why are you in such a hurry to contact me? After several translocations, Gray returned to Fergus Castle. Through the spiritual connection, he asked Barnett Neem. Originally, Gray had wanted to deal with the 5th faction, but after receiving Barnett Neem's communication, which revealed an urgent mood, he thought that something had happened at Fergus Castle, so he hurried back. After rushing back, he found that Fergus Castle was the same as when he left. There were no changes, and he couldn't help but be puzzled. Sir, just now we caught a few intruders. One of them said that he has important news to tell you personally. Barnett Naeem's voice said in Gray's mind. Intruders? They have important news to tell me? Through the spiritual connection, Gray came to a location in the backyard of the castle. This place was where servants or enemies who had made mistakes were dealt with. He entered a simple room in the courtyard and immediately saw 4 people bound to metal pillars by special metal chains. It's you. Among the 4 people, Gray didn't know 3 of them, but when he saw the 4th person, Gray couldn't help but be slightly surprised as he recognized her. She was a young woman, about 25 or 26 years old, with a head of dazzling blonde hair. The woman was extremely slender, and her body, which was bound tightly by the metal chains, revealed her curvaceous figure. Her face was rather beautiful, but it was slightly pale, like someone who hadn't seen the sun for a long time. Upon seeing Gray, the woman's eyes revealed an undisguised hatred, as she called out Gray's name through gritted teeth. Gray. Fergus. We meet again. Who Kylie? Since you've already escaped, why are you still here to court death? Unlike the woman's hate-filled gaze, Gray looked at the woman with a calm gaze, or rather, an indifferent one. The woman was the former princess of the Flame Kingdom, who Kylie Raging Flame. When the royal family of the Flame Kingdom was annihilated, they did not find her. Because of this, the three kingdoms issued a warrant for her arrest and sent people to track her down. Gray did not pay any attention to the other party's bounty. A desolate blood warrior was not worthy of his attention, and the other party was not a threat to him. What surprised him was that the other party had taken the initiative to come to him. You're the one who wants to meet me with important news? Gray looked at Kylie and asked. That's right. I have something very important to tell you. Kylie sneered as she looked at Gray with eyes full of hatred. Oh, what news? Gray looked at him with interest. I believe you all know that we have been under the protection of the Fifth Force recently. From the Fifth Force, I obtained a piece of information. The Fifth Force is preparing a blood sacrifice for the entire world. If they succeed, the entire world will be destroyed and no one will survive. Kylie's gaze swept across everyone present. Her voice was extremely cold, and coupled with what she said, it was like the voice of a demon from hell. WHat? Liar, you must be lying. Your goal is to make Lord Grey clash with the Fifth Force. Barnett and Naeem and the others' faces changed. Although they were people who had been resurrected, they also had the emotions of a normal person. In the face of death, they would naturally feel reverence and fear. Some people obviously did not believe it. They looked at Kylie unkindly, thinking that she was lying to make Grey fight to the death with the Fifth Force. A blood sacrifice for the world. No one will survive. Waving his hand to stop everyone's noise, Gray looked at Kylie with surprise and sizing her up. What? You don't believe me? Her gaze met Gray's. Even if she knew that Gray had combat power comparable to magic light, Kylie did not back down. She looked at Gray provocatively. No, I believe you. Gray first shook his head, then nodded. He did not doubt her words. He had always been worried and guessed in this regard. The reason why the Empire of 1,000 years ago had risked destruction to stop the Fifth Force was definitely not just because the planar origin formation could prevent the birth of magic light. There must be a deeper reason, and her words confirmed his guesses and worries. The planar origin formation's harm to this world was indeed not just preventing the birth of magic light. It was just that he did not expect the consequences to be so serious. The planar origin formation's harm to this world was so great that it would lead to the destruction of this world in the end. I'm just a little curious. Why are you telling me this news? Don't tell me it's to survive. Although I don't know much about you, in my opinion, you're definitely not the kind of person who would struggle at death's door just to survive. You want to know my goal? Well, I'll tell you. Kylie sneered. A few strands of her golden hair fell over her face, making her look extremely cold. I want you to die in the hands of the Fifth Force and die in pain, not die without knowing anything. That will be too easy for you. No wonder. Gray nodded in understanding. He could roughly understand her mentality. Her hatred for him could be said to be bone deep, and she wanted to eat his flesh and blood alive. After all, he was definitely the main contributor to the destruction of the Flame Kingdom, because Blair Blaze had died at his hands in the end. Now that the planar origin formation has changed, can you tell me how many days are left until the Fifth Force performs the blood sacrifice? 3 days. You still have 3 days. I heard from the Fifth Force that after the planar origin formation changes, the magic weapons will enter the fusion stage. It will take 3 days before the final blood sacrifice can be carried out. Kylie looked at Gray with a proud gaze, as well as the joy of revenge. She believed that Gray would not do nothing, and as long as Gray did it, her goal of revenge would be achieved. Facing the Fifth Force that had 4 magic light, the other party would undoubtedly die. Dying with regret, unwillingness, and pain in her heart was obviously more satisfying than dying without knowing anything. Okay, give me a quick death. Raising her fair neck, Kylie looked at Gray. Even in the face of death, there was not the slightest satisfaction in her eyes. After the destruction of the Flame Kingdom, her heart was already dead. What was still alive now was only a body without a heart. Death was also a kind of relief for her, so she was not afraid of death at all. "No, I won't kill you." Gray shook his head, looked at Hu Kylie, and said with indifference, "Although your purpose is to let me fight with the fifth force and die a painful death, this information is indeed very useful to me, so I won't kill you." Gray turned his head to look at Barnett Naim and the others and ordered, "Let them go." Barnett Naim and the others naturally carried out Gray's order unconditionally. Immediately, someone came forward and untied all the chains on the 4 people, restoring their freedom. "Okay, you can go now. There's still 3 days. If I can't stop the fifth force from sacrificing this world, you only have 3 days to live." With a wave of his hand, Gray signaled that Kylie and the others could leave. The information was indeed very important to him, so important that he was willing to let the 4 people go. He had always been worried about what the fifth force was going to do, but he did not expect that they would actually plan to sacrifice the whole world and destroy it. And now that he knew, he could naturally make some preparations. After all, he had the ability to break the world barrier, and also knew the correct location of the world barrier that connected to other worlds. If the world was going to be destroyed, he naturally could not live and die with the world. Of course, this was the worst-case scenario. If possible, he did not want this world to be destroyed, so he would do his best to stop the fifth force. In the end, Kylie and the others left with doubts in their hearts. They did not understand why Gray was calmer than expected after knowing this information, and was even in such a good mood that he was willing to let the 4 of them go. Vaguely, Kylie felt that she might have made a wrong decision by telling Gray Fergus the information. She naturally knew that Gray Fergus had the ability to break the world barrier, but she had already learned from the fifth force that even if he had the ability to break the world barrier, if he did not know the location of the source world, it would be difficult to leave this world and would be trapped in this world until he died. This was the reason why she dared to tell Gray Fergus the information. But now she was no longer so confident in her judgment. Perhaps she had really made an extremely wrong decision. "Sir, what do we do now?" Kylie and the others left. In the courtyard, Barnett Naim and the others all had solemn expressions and hesitation in their hearts. No one would not panic when they knew that they were about to die. Not even them. "Don't worry, I know a way to leave this world. Even in the worst-case scenario, it's enough to escape this world." Gray shook his head slightly. After putting all the magic light, level blood fiend's blood into a rune space bag, he took off the purple ring and handed it to Barnett Naim. "Take this magic power weapon and inform the royal family and the forces familiar with me. Send the people of these forces to the teleportation point at the edge of the endless ice field near the Jewel Kingdom within 2 days." After handing the purple ring to Barnett Naim, he got Barnett Naim to contact the royal family and some of the forces with whom he had dealings. Gray himself went to the forest where he usually trained. As for the escape route and a series of arrangements, he left it to Barnett Naim to prepare with the spatial teleportation item. What he needed to do now was to use this transformation opportunity to try and see if he could increase his strength and prevent the fifth force from sacrificing this world. After all, even if he had the ability to break the world barrier and go to another world, he could not take too many people with him. In the wooden house, Gray arranged the vessels containing the blood of the 5 magic light, level blood fiends in a row. There were 4 small crystal bottles and a golden metal bottle about 1 to 2 liters in volume. The 4 small crystal bottles contained the blood of the 6-headed snake, the wind demon fox, the ice-fire demon ape, and the water-loathed demon beast, while the 1 to 2 liters golden metal bottle contained the blood of the emerald dragon beast. Looking at the 5 vessels, Gray began the unfinished selection. Because of the appearance of the palace, he was forced to stop the selection and swallowing of the blood fiend's blood. Now he had to continue. Chapter 598. Right now, I need to increase my strength. Taking the safe route won't do. Gray first eliminated the blood of the wind fox and the ice-fire demonic ape. He already had the king-class bloodline of the wind, ice, and fire elements. Even if he consumed the blood of the wind fox and the ice-fire demonic ape, he would not mutate into a stronger power. Therefore, he had to eliminate the blood of these two types of blood beasts. Then I'll have to choose between these three types of blood. Gray looked at the remaining three types of blood of magic light level blood fiends. The water-loathing beast was a magic light level blood fiend similar to the water-loathing beast that Gray had encountered before. It could turn water into an indestructible blade. The Emerald Dragon was a magic light level blood fiend with wood abilities. It was rumored that it had the bloodline of the mythical dragon. The six-headed snake was a magic light level blood fiend with the mythical Hydra's bloodline. It had 6 types of blood fiend abilities, but no one knew which ones. The six-headed snake's blood has to be eliminated. Among the 3 types of blood fiends, Gray first eliminated the six-headed snake's blood. Although the six-headed snake possessed 6 types of abilities, the power of these 6 abilities was much weaker than that of a blood fiend of the same rank. Even if it was mixed with its current abilities, it could still affect the power of the transformation due to the weaker power. Therefore, Gray was the first to rule it out. After eliminating the six-headed snake's blood, only the water-loathing beast's blood and the emerald dragon's blood were left. Gray looked at the containers containing the water-loathing beast's blood and the emerald dragon's blood. One was a water ability, while the other was a wood ability. Gray had never obtained a water ability before. As for the wood ability, Gray did have one, but it was at the mad level, which was very different from his current level. Both abilities could have mutated with his current abilities, even if it was the wood elemental ability. Although he had the wood elemental ability now, the gap between him and the king level was too great. It was impossible for it to mutate. Therefore, the possibility of the wood elemental ability mutating could not be ruled out. Water or wood, which one should I choose? Gray rested his chin on his right hand and glanced back and forth between the vessels containing the blood of the water-loathed magical beast and the emerald dragon beast. He hesitated and couldn't make up his mind. Both abilities had the possibility of triggering a mutation, but which one to choose was a difficult choice. After thinking for a moment, he closed his eyes and carefully felt the 4 mixed abilities in his body. Soon after, his eyes suddenly opened, and he did not hesitate to reach his hand for the emerald green dragon blood. After pouring out a portion, Gray walked in the bathroom, stepped into the bathtub that had already prepared hot water, and drank it in one gulp. The blood slid down his throat into his stomach like a stone falling into a calm lake. Strange changes were occurring in Gray's body. Every part of Gray's bones, internal organs, muscles, and even the tiniest of cells were undergoing an unknown change in this extremely comfortable process. His body became relaxed in an instant, as if he was being massaged by a pair of invisible hands. It was extremely comfortable, and he felt as if his whole body was floating. On the outside, Gray's body was covered with a layer of green light. Occasionally, the green light was like a mischievous fairy, sputtering out like little stars. The green light was filled with extreme vitality. When it landed on the wooden floor, green sprouts immediately grew on the floor. The originally dead wood was actually revived under the green light. From head to toe, there was not a single part of his body that was uncomfortable. This was probably the most comfortable Gray had ever experienced after consuming the blood of a blood beast. Last time, when Gray swallowed the blood of a gemstone beast, he did not feel anything. Naturally, it was not comfortable. The experience of losing one's senses was, in fact, not pleasant. But this time, not only did he feel something, it was an extremely comfortable experience. It was as if he was lying on the grass in spring, being caressed by the cool spring breeze. Wood elemental abilities had the ability to heal, and Gray's reverse nurturing ability was derived from this ability. When he consumed the blood of a blood beast with this ability to transform, he didn't feel any pain during the transformation process. Instead, he felt comfortable all over. This wasn't hard to understand. Half an hour later, the transformation was completed. Gray opened his eyes. What entered his eyes was an emerald green color. The entire bathroom, the floor, the ceiling, and the walls were all covered with green branches. The entire bathroom was filled with green. Did my ability leak out? Looking at the bathroom that had turned green, Gray laughed involuntarily. With just a thought, all the branches grew in reverse. The bathroom returned to its original appearance. He used the wood elemental ability to make the plants that grew out disappear. Then, he walked out of the bathroom, put on his clothes, and impatiently went to the open space outside the wooden house. Shwa! A purple light wrapped around Gray. Gray's figure flashed and disappeared. His speed was extremely fast. It was as if he teleported to another place. Sure enough, reappearing in another place at an unimaginable speed, Gray's face revealed a look of surprise and surprise. This was an ability that he had never possessed before. After consuming the Emerald Dragon's blood, this ability must have mutated again. When choosing between the Water Flame Beast and the Emerald Dragon blood, Gray finally chose the Emerald Dragon blood. The reason was that when he felt the 4 mixed abilities in his body, he accidentally found that there were not only 4 abilities, but 5 abilities. It's just that the 5th ability was very weak. If he didn't distinguish it carefully, he wouldn't have noticed it. That's right, the other ability was the Wood Elemental ability. He didn't know when the crazy level Wood Elemental ability was integrated into the 4 mixed abilities, but because the gap between it and the other 4 elemental abilities was too big, it couldn't be reflected at all. Feeling that there was a Wood Elemental ability in the 4 mixed abilities, he immediately made a choice and chose to take the Emerald Dragon blood to transform. The result was as he expected. After taking the Emerald Dragon blood to enhance the Wood Elemental bloodline, the 4 mixed abilities changed again. Now it should be called the 5 mixed abilities. What kind of ability is this? After taking a deep breath and calming down a little, Gray had time to carefully study the new ability. According to the method of using the ability vaguely felt from the blood, he used the ability again. Whoosh! The purple light wrapped around him. He looked at the side of the open space, close to the tree, and stepped out. In an instant, he felt that everything in the outside world had slowed down. The leaves that fell from the tree because of the yellow color spun in the air and slowly fell to the ground, but the falling speed was several times slower than normal. A frightened bird flew from the tree and into the forest. It was also very slow, so slow that a child could catch up with it. It's not that the outside world has slowed down, it's that I've become faster. Appearing beside the tree, Gray easily caught the leaf that fell from the tree. Gray's eyes revealed a look of understanding. Using it again, he had a more intuitive understanding of this ability. Whether it was the falling leaf or the frightened bird that flew away, their speed did not slow down. The only one who had become faster was himself. Under the purple light, his speed had become extremely fast. What kind of ability is it to increase one's speed? Throwing away the leaf in his hand, Gray had a look of contemplation. When he was wrapped in the purple light, he felt that his speed had definitely reached the level of magic light, or even above magic light. He couldn't help but be surprised. Without using the blood skill frenzy, his speed was comparable to a first-tier king. However, after being wrapped in the blue light, his speed had jumped several levels, reaching the level of magic light. It might even be beyond the level of a normal magic light. The increase in speed was so exaggerated that even he couldn't help but be shocked. He wanted to find a word to describe this ability, but he couldn't think of an accurate one at that moment. It's similar to Sophia's Blood Fiend ability. Gray couldn't help but think of Sophia's Blood Fiend ability. It could also increase one's speed, but the difference was that when she used the ability, her body was covered in a layer of blue light. Furthermore, the increase in speed was far less terrifying than his. The use of this ability is not limited to this. According to the information he sensed from his bloodline, this ability could be used in more ways than this. This ability could also be used to attack. In order to verify another way of using this ability, Gray used spatial teleportation and appeared in the red leaf forest. It was autumn now, and large patches of red leaves had turned red. The entire red leaves forest was crimson red, as if it was a burning flame. Looking at the forest in the distance, Gray waved his hand lightly according to the method of using this ability in his mind. Whoosh! A ray of purple light shot out quickly, like a rainbow, towards the red leaves forest in front of him. Crack! The trees that collided with the purple light quickly turned yellow and fell. The life force of the trees quickly disappeared, and finally disappeared completely. A strange area that extended for thousands of meters appeared. In this strange area, all the trees had withered and lost their lives. There was no sign of life at all. The life force of the trees has disappeared. Is this the ability to deprive life? Gray walked forward doubtfully and reached out to touch one of the trees that had been affected by his ability. Instantly, he saw that the tree seemed to have experienced 1,000 years of time. With a light touch, it crumbled and turned into dust, completely disappearing without a trace. Is it really the ability to deprive life? The first use is to increase my speed. The second is to deprive life. There is no connection between the two. Logically speaking, the two uses derived from the same ability should be related. Unknowingly, Gray's right hand was already supporting his chin. He felt that the second use was not depriving life, but at that moment, he didn't know how to explain this phenomenon.